to focus more of my work on Africa.
It's only that I learned it.
No, you're indigenous language. I picked up on it.
I don't have a card, but at least I can communicate with you.
This is what we're preparing advocacy for COP19 about gender equality and graduation.
Hapana, nimetoka Tanzania. Mimi niliona wewe ukiandika Kenya nikasema Neema.
Jambo ndugu yangu.
Jambo kabisa. Mjambo wewe?
Ndio. Habari ya
salama. Anajua Kiswahili Kongo. Anatokea Kongo.
Asante. Asante.
I'm Mary Mabanza.
Na yeye anatoka Tanzania.
Anatoka Kenya.
Anatoka Kenya. Naye anazungumza Swahili. Kidogo tu. Oh wow.
Swahili is the African language, it's the Pan-African language. No, AU has a
Unaenda kujiandaa sasa.
Nataka nione tu tunavyoanza.
Unajua kama wanaendelea kufanya miti hatuweza kupata
Tutaishia kufanya miti.
start at 8 a.m. Yeah, I think so. Usually gives me more time to get home, but it's people are traveling. I mean, it's really at 7. I mean, I get up early, but I have
Dada, unatoka wapi Kongo?
Bukavu.
Kuna mama mmoja na wasiliana naye sana kutoka Bukavu. Anaitwa Yvonne. Nitajaribu kukumbuka hiyo jina ya pili. Nimeandika kwa email yangu.
Okay.
Na kuna mama kutoka Pigme anaitwa Adolphine.
Adolphine amekwisha kuwa minister.
Ndivyo nimeambiwa.
Ndio.
Unamfahamu?
Sana. Juu tumetumika naye kwa societe civile. ni mwanamke mwenye anapigania wa pigme na haviko fasi. Kwetu wamewatosha ndani ya pori na banabaua wakati moja hawana mashamba wenye walikuwa wanaishi yao porini banabatosha tu wapatie nyama ndani wa turisti wakuje wa visite wapate franga. Sasa wamewatosha maporini. Hapa nyuma wameua wawili waliwaua walienda iwa chakula mshamba zone fame nomeje kwa je ne sais pas mais waliua wanaume wakaviole wanawake. Wewe hakuna mtu mwenye anajisema hata mmoja amejaribu, ni mtu mmoja na nakuwa sasa asante nitampa una card business naweza
kuandikia jina. Ukimwambia tu mabadusi atajua.
Ndio.
Mwambie ule wa Kenya Masai atajua.
Huko Masai. Oh, wow.
Long enough. Apart from that. So she my schedule.
So we were gonna.
Can you just sit that over on the side? Sorry. Did you just sit it on a chair? Oh, you want to move?
You're gonna sneak in front just so we're not kind of hiding behind the podium with the two of us.
You can totally do that.
Good morning, everyone.
Me in your colors. I'm jealous.
Good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started, and others will join us shortly. I wanted to make a few announcements before we have our morning speakers. Those of you who still have PowerPoints that you want for your presentations, please see Gabrielle. She's waving her arm at you, eager, with open hands, waiting for your PowerPoint presentations. At the registration desk at noontime, if you've not signed up for a working group, we'd really appreciate you going ahead and filling out those forms. They're right at the registration table. Also, people need to sign the media release forms. So if you haven't really gone through registration in detail, we really appreciate you doing that. The declaration is still in the back of the room for those of you who didn't get a chance to sign it last night. And what we'd like to do to have the day go really smoothly is when you know that you are next up to have your panel session, there's a table here in the front that has a sign on it that says speakers. If you could kind of make your way there towards the end of the session before you, then it'll just make a smooth transition with you coming up on the stage. We learned from last night's announcements that what we want to say is that breakfast is at 7, so we can start at 8. We said breakfast was between 7 and 8, and so people ate at 8. So breakfast is at 7, and we'd like to start at 8. And the reason that we're doing this is we're not trying to have such a hefty schedule here. It's just that there's so want the opportunity to hear from everyone. So it's a full calendar. Thank you very much, and I'd like to invite our morning presenters. Thanks so much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Natalie Eddy. I'm the coordinator for the Global Gender and Climate Alliance. It is so exciting to be here, and Lucy and I have the honor of opening up today's meetings, and so we wanted to share a few comments with you, but first and foremost, from my part, I just want to say it's such a thrill to be here with all of you. Many of us have been thinking about and planning this meeting, supporting the organizers for a long time now, so it's such a treat to be here all in person now. Just thinking a little bit about some of the messages that came out last night, I think some of the key points that really struck me were some of the comments about the diversity of viewpoints and the importance of all of us bringing our different views together, and how that's going to be what makes it possible to drive a solution to climate change and gender equality. So that diversity is something I want to keep working on myself in terms of embracing that and incorporating that, and then also the importance and the role of democracy in making this possible. So building on some of these big themes that we heard last night, and then thinking about what we have in front of us for the next 3 days when we kind of get down to do our work. And this is our chance to work through the working groups and start elaborating the Women's Climate Action Agenda, look at some of the more detailed issues within the context of the breakout groups. And I think what I keep coming back to is what a unique opportunity this is for all of us to be here and be able to focus on how we want to drive this process. I think a lot of us work together in some of these other arenas, international climate change negotiation arenas, other international UN arenas. And we do our best to drive that process there, but a lot of times we're actually reacting in more in a defensive mode. And so we get really busy and scrambling to respond to what's going on, whereas we're not trying to respond to anything now except the urgency of climate change and the urgency to make a difference now. So that's amazing that the organizers have made this space for us. I hope we can all take advantage of it and make the most of it. In addition to the working groups and our work, we're also going to have a chance to get to know all of each other. We will be introducing ourselves very briefly in less than 1 minute each, half of us today and half of us tomorrow. And we'll also have these chances to break out into the breakout groups and the workout group and the working groups and other dialogues. So I guess I wanted to share that excitement. It's really, really wonderful. Quite an honor to be with all of you here. And hand over to Lucy. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Good morning, everyone. I hope you had a beautiful night after yesterday. We had really a wonderful time, and before even I say anything, I would like first to thank everyone and also give my greetings and honor to the people from this area, the indigenous people from this community here. And it was really very enriching yesterday to hear the history of this particular region. As indigenous people, we are always happy to keep on having our history, telling people where we come from and where we are going, and to keep it going for the next generation. I think yesterday we had very good dynamic information here. We had great ladies who were speaking to us, and the stories we had is our hope that the dreams of the two ladies here who informed us how they sat and thought that this particular conference is very important for us, and it could not be any better for anyone else but the mothers, the women of this world, because we are the ones who are caregivers. We are the ones who know our lands and our natural resources, our traditions, and what our future want. And I think it has come the greatest time. There's no other better time we could have this conference than now. And I think it's really very beautiful. I also would like to really thank them for inviting me and to have this opportunity to be able to speak to you all. It's really wonderful to do that. And one thing that we should remember, as Natalie has already said, we are from different regions. We have from different geographical regions. And every one of you and everyone in the community has experienced climate change. But remember, we have one sky that we look up every morning, and that sky is for everyone. But we have different impacts on climate change. Even if you are from the US, you feel the impact from different regions where you are. And it's the same for Africa. I come from Kenya, and I work with communities, especially in the Asal area, the dry lands of Kenya, and East Africa as a region. And every other time I go to the community, you find that the impacts are different. Where we had prolonged droughts, keep on, and some areas, it's even worse than before. And in some other areas, they now receive more rain than before. They don't even know what to do, because they were not used to that rain. So we must look and remember that as we discuss here in the next 3 days. Let's look at those impacts. What can we do down on the ground? Because as Natalie has said, we go to these meetings, we have very good information, and we try to lobby and make sure our voices are heard. But it's very, very important that we make an impact and action and it should be now, so that we can reach out to our communities. And I think we should carry this. We are the women, we have the solution, we know the problems, and we know how we can solve them. All what we need to do is to work together and be able to support each other and share the experiences we have, so that we can move on with those experiences and we see how far we can go and what impact we can do, so that we can reduce the impact of climate change among the communities down in the community level where we are. And I wish you all the best when we meet here today. Let's carry this message before that we have one sky but different impacts. And I think that way we can be able to make an impact, and we know the solutions and we can make it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful welcoming this morning. And we're very honored to have with us Casey Camp from the Ponca people here in the United States. She's an environmentalist and a longtime indigenous activist. And we welcome you this morning in an honorable way to open this day with prayer, which is so important to all of us. Thank you so much, Casey. Would you like this?
I think so. Might be nice. Good morning to all of you. And I really mean it. It's a beautiful morning. It's a beautiful morning. And you're all beautiful. You make me feel good. I can't look more forward than to meet and greet each one of you. You know, it makes me feel good to be in your presence. I would say that I'm honored, but it's far more than that. We are history, you and I, today. We can be the grandmothers and the great-grandmothers in the 7 generations to come that say, yeah, my mama was there, my auntie was there, my grandma was there, my sister was there, my ancestor was there, my ancestor knew someone who was there on that day, that the change became real. So I greet you on this last day of summer of 2013, at the new beginning of the new day that the Mayans talked about, that the Poncas spoke about, that the indigenous people knew about, and that all of you have tuned into through the spirit that lives within these robes that you wear called our bodies. So I'd like to begin this morning with an offering of tobacco for the representative of the Lenape people who are here today. Thank you for bringing us home to your homeland and making us feel so welcome. This prayer that I'm offering to you today is not mine, of course, because it began when we began, and long before the beginnings that we know of. So in that way, I want to say thank you for this day. Tomorrow is the equinox. I find that exciting. Our balance will be restored. Both of those wings are the ones that we're flying with at this time. Both of those wings are balanced. And we're moving into this wonderful age where we too can say that we're balanced. So I ask you to look within yourself and join me from that place of your spirit that brought you here, and the spirit guides who made sure this happened. And these beautiful women guides that are embodied, that actually made these things happen in the way that they did so that we could gather today. We say thank you to all of you. Uahe tamang chik te atine ke ganke ki da te ati. Panka Abadi, Mashte Panka, Oklahoma. My name is Yousry. I've been looking forward to this day, and now I'm here with you, and I say thank you. Weeblaha ehe. Weeblaha from the Panka people. Thank you from the Panka people. Thank you from my family that has allowed me to take the time away from them so that I could share this with you. I ask that you stand and join me as we look into the directions. I noticed my relative from the East Coast began looking east. We will begin looking west. To the west, we've come to you this day and we ask you to look this direction. Sacred Thunder Nation that is coming this way from the west, we ask you to look at us. We see you on the wings of the eagle. The eagle carries on itself the fire, the air, and the water that are sacred to us. And we thank you, Thunder Nation, as we look to the west. We ask that as you look our direction, that you bless those portions of us that are you, the fire within us that makes our bodies warm, the air that is the breath of the Creator breathed into us as we came from our mother's womb, the water that is sacred, that falls from your wings as you offer yourselves to us in the ways of rain. We look to the north. To the north, a white wolf of purification that is looking back this direction right now. We see that you are wounded. We see that the whiteness is falling into the ocean and that the coldness, that is your breath, that comes to us at the times of purification in the wintertime, needs healing. So as you look this direction and you come to bless us, we too look to the north for the coming purification days. And we offer back to you all the prayers that you have given to us over the years during the wintertime when our souls are at rest, when our spirits are at rest, when we sit inside and look forward to the coming spring. We look for the purification that you offer us so that things may be clean and strong again. And we offer that back to you, to the north. To the east, Father, Son, you came up this day. You're giving us light. Without you, we are nothing. And yet you give us this day. You smile upon us. You give us your warmth. You give us the understanding of what each day is in its own precious way. We look to you. We see our moon mother. We see the morning star that gives us the wisdom that guides us throughout that day. And as we look to the east and the sun rises upon us this day, we ask for your wisdom, morning star. We ask for you, moon mother, to guide the flow that is inside the women of the earth at this time, that is inside our mother at this time. We ask as we look to the east that the wisdom flow through us and allow us to flow out in the directions that you ask us to. To the south, the warm winds to the south, the growing winds to the south, the relatives down in the red quadrant of the earth, all the way down to the southern tip. We look to you for the wisdoms to help us in all areas of growth. We ask you, as the warm winds have blown on us all this summertime, all this springtime, that as it blows back the other direction, that you think of us in terms of growth, that you think of us in ways to lift ourselves up and to grow spiritually. And as we grow spiritually, all other things will grow along with that. To bless these bodies that house the spirits within, that are part of our Mother Earth. Above us, Great Spirit that is the culmination of all living things, all of our relatives in whatever form they take. As we look up, we see the star nation. We see the winged nation. We see the beauty that shines down on us, and we ask to reflect that beauty and to reflect what needs to be done here on Mother Earth as you look down this way. Below us, Earth Mother. Earth Mother, you are all that makes us who we are. We are what you have created. We wear these robes proudly that are made of the 4 lakes, the rooted nation, the waters, and the fires. And we ask, Earth Mother, that you bless each and every portion of yourself for us. You nurture us. We come within your womb in our minds, in our hearts, so that we may be rebuilt again in a new way, and so that we may reflect the needs that you have. Earth Mother, we thank you. We thank you for the food that we've eaten today. We thank you for the water that we take for granted. We thank you for all of our peoples all over the earth that allowed us to come together in their name and in their way to speak and to collectively understand how we go forward from this moment on. We ask a blessing on those in the hospitals. We ask a blessing on those in our homes, each and every bloodline. We ask a blessing on the men in our lives, the grandfathers, the great-grandfathers, the fathers, the companions, the sons, the uncles, the nephews, the grandsons, the ones to come, that they too may find their place in this sacred balance that we all seek. And Dade Wakanda, Inhatande, Great Spirit, Earth Mother, we thank you for all that is. Sham. Aha.
Rosemary and Carmen? Rosemary and Carmen. You can help me do. Thank you. It's really important that we all know who we are. So we're going to take this few moments now to do half of us now and half of us tomorrow. And it's very simple. We're going to go around and pass this mic, and everyone has 1 minute or less to say your name and where you're from and what you hope to see happen at the summit. Just a sentence about what your hopes are in being here, what you would like to see coming out of the summit, so we can all hear each other. While we do this, I've asked Rosemary to, and if Carmen comes, she can join, to light a candle as each woman says her name, really as a symbolic gesture of saying, we are all lights at this really critical time in history, and together, as the candles get lit, together we see we're brighter and brighter when we are joined together in the work that we're doing. So thank you for going through this process with us. No, it's just going to go here.
Good morning. My name is Natalie Eddy. I'm the coordinator for the Global Gender and Climate Alliance. I'm based in Colorado. We're an alliance of 83 organizations from all over the world, including civil society, UN agencies, and intergovernmental organizations. In terms of my wishes, I had a chance to speak a bit about that, but I'm really looking forward to an ambitious climate action agenda that sets us on a path that's urgent and demanding as we go forward. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Aira Kalela. I come from Finland, and I have been working in our Ministry of Environment nearly 30 years. But now, recently, the last 6 years, I have been very proud to be part of the GCCA, actually established 6 years ago in Bali, and it happens to be so that I'm sitting here in between of the two strong women, Natalie and Lorena, who have been very vital in this cooperation. We have also Bridget Burns there coordinating our activities with women delegates in Vido. Our purpose has been to try to integrate the gender perspective in the climate negotiations. That is both governmental work, but as Natalie explained, we have been involving the civil society. Governments can support us, they can guide us, but it's the people who do the real work.
Good morning, my name is Lorena Aguilar. I work for IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. I am their gender person. And what I want from this summit is to become stronger because I'm next to you. You're holding me and you're helping me. That is my wish.
Hello, my name is Janice Turner, and I'm a citizen of the Lenape Indian tribe of Delaware. I live in the Hudson Valley. And what I would like to see happen is I'd like all of us to speak about our differences this weekend, and then in the end, realize there are no differences. That's
Hello, good morning. My name is Sasha Gabizon. I am a mother of a 12-year-old daughter. I live in Germany. I was born in Africa. I'm Dutch, and I am the international director of Women in Europe for Common Future. I follow in the footsteps of my mother, who helped to found this network of women's organizations. Some of the partners we work with and have worked with for a long time are here. We started in Russia and Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, and I'm now also coordinating at the global level the Women's Major Group, which is trying to make the next 15 years development goals based on equality, on gender equality, on human rights, and on living within the boundaries of this planet and sharing our environmental resources equally. So that's the work I do, and I'm very excited about this conference. Unfortunately, I can't stay all the time. I can only be here today, but I really hope that we will come with movement building, and that we have many new people here who are maybe not working with us at a global level, and that we can really make sure that what we do locally and what we do globally will together hopefully achieve the necessary changes which we need. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Good morning from Bangladesh. I'm Farah. I came from Bangladesh day before yesterday. I work with Action Aid Bangladesh. It's an organization that has been trying to fight poverty together with the community, with the women, with the Dalits, with the people with disability. And we have tried to look at alternatives in terms of food security, livelihood, opportunities for women, especially marginalized women. I have a problem with the word poor women or poor communities, because I think it's a reflection of of our own shortcoming. Because I don't think the communities who are marginalized or disadvantaged are poor. It's that they are disadvantaged, and it's an accident of birth. So I wish we could take that out of our discourse and more emphasize on lack of opportunities and disadvantages. However, we are all here, and that is so inspiring, especially so many women. And since yesterday, listening to Dr. Jane Goodall and Vandana, I'm even further energized. I just want to finish by saying that my wish is that we will all come together, the North and the South, the women from different backgrounds and diversity, and take this opportunity to make a better world. Let climate change be an opportunity.
My name is Melanie Demore, and I am a vocal activist and singer. I live in Oakland, California. And my purpose on the planet is to help people connect to their own voice. My motto in life that I wrote is, a song can hold you up when there seems to be no ground beneath you. So I'm just saying that we will be singing together today. Nod your head. That's right. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm sure that music will energize us. My name is Lucy Mulenkei again from Kenya. I work with an organization, Indigenous Information Network, and also have a regional organization of African Indigenous women. And my dream and really what I look forward here is that I've come to listen, to share with others, and to hear the stories and the knowledge that I can take back and go and do the same to my communities, because I have to go back and tell them this is what is happening in the rest of the world, and maybe we can get something. I can go back with something that can be positive and that we can be able to apply all of us together, and in future come back and say this is what we got from here. Thank you.
Aloha, everyone. My name is Malia Nobriga Oliveira. I'm from the island of Kauai. I'm currently living on the island of Oahu and working at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. The program that I'm a part of is called LAMA, which stands for Loli Aniau Makaala Aniau, Climate Change, Climate Alert. And it's a new program that's based under the Hawaii Nui Akea School of Hawaiian Knowledge in collaboration with the William S. Richardson School of Law. I'm really excited to be here, to be with all of you, and I think part of my hopes have already come true of being inspired and being in a room with such amazing wahine, or women that bring that kind of energy to the work that we do. Lucy and I also help to coordinate the Indigenous Peoples Caucus that works at the UN Convention on Biological Diversity. And specifically, we help with the Indigenous Women's Biodiversity Network. So excited to be here with everyone. Aloha.
Good morning, wonderful women of the world. My name is Shubhashni Raj, and I'm from Fiji. But my other home is Buffalo, New York, which I love with all my heart, despite all the winters, which is not as bad as it is, actually. I hope by being here to be enriched by the conversation we're having, and the conversation, the out-of-the-box conversation that we're not having outside of this room. And that is what I hope to get out of this. Some big ideas, some out-of-the-box thoughts to take this conversation forward. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Bula, I'm Noli Nambulivo. I'm from Fiji as well, so it's good to see Subhashni. I'm a feminist, I think almost from birth, and I'm someone who's part of a whole lot of collectives, both locally, nationally, and then in the last decade or so, regionally and globally. And so it really is about, for me, it's about trying to connect in very meaningful and real ways the work that I really care about at a local level. But how do you do that when you're working at a General Assembly? How do you do that work strongly and substantively at the United Nations or wherever else you find yourself? Because it's all very, very tough work wherever you're doing it. So for me, that's one of the aims here, is to connect strongly with those who are doing similar but very different work as well, and also to have fun with you all and have a lot of conversations. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Laura Seidel, and I'm here as a chairperson for the Captain Planet Foundation. It was a cartoon based on the first and only eco-superhero, and it was seen in 100 countries and 23 different languages to teach and edutain children about global issues of importance, primarily social issues and environmental issues. it was, you know, I think we're all here in different capacities. I think we're all doing amazing, wonderful, powerful work, but there are missing pieces of the puzzle. And I think that's why we're here, is to identify those missing pieces and figure out how we're going to fill those voids. And I'm very concerned about the future of our children, their health, their future, their education. And I think if we all work together and identify what needs to be done, then we can go out into the world and scale this up. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. It's one of the meccas of the civil and human rights movements, and I think getting the civil rights activists and the African American clergy involved is one place where we can start. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to see all your faces, and thank you again for the folks that brought us here. My name is Janet Redman. I'm the director of the Climate Policy Program at the Institute for Policy Studies in Washington, D.C. I'm actually from the Delaware watershed in New Jersey, next one over. Our goal is to connect peace, justice, and the environment and bring ideas into action, and we see our role as helping develop ideas that social movements then are bringing forward to flex collective muscle in places of power. So I see my wish for this space is to really, again, be inspired by folks that are here and be reminded to be bold, that we can't be contained by the political feasibility of what action has already come before us, but that, in fact, we need to push that space open. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from everyone and exchanging from other women that are here.
Hi, I'm Kelly Rigg, the Executive Director of the Global Call for Climate Action, the GCCA, which is not to be confused with the GGCA, even though we have probably very similar aims. You may also know us under the tick, tick, tick sort of logo. I'm here because I think, Laura, you're right, that there are missing pieces to the puzzle, but I think we also don't communicate the entire puzzle all at the same time. And I think what we need to do is join our voices together to make sure that diversity is celebrated, but that's not the same thing as divisiveness, which happens sometimes. So we need to communicate and bring our voices together to actually grow and expand the movement and include people who are not already part of it, who are not already convinced. So that means talking to people from where they are, not where we wish they were, which means probably finding different language to talk to different people. So looking forward to working with all of you on that.
Good morning. I'm Lori Williams. I'm a volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby. I'm from Oakland, California as well. I have spent 25 years as an attorney for the United States Environmental Protection Agency, but this is my vacation. I'm here on my personal time and talking only about my personal opinions. I feel like my work at EPA has given me a special understanding of what it is to implement environmental laws, and I'm here to talk with all of you about what would be good U.S. climate legislation, what would be good model for generally for national climate legislation to supplement all that you hope to do on the international level. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Lidi Nakpil from the Philippines. I work as coordinator for the Asia Pacific Movement on Debt and Development, which is part of a global network called Jubilee South. My involvement in climate, aside from the Asia level, is also nationally and locally through the Philippine Movement for Climate Justice, as well as internationally with the global campaign to demand climate justice. My immediate concern now is to work for this global month of action on energy that we are having from October 11 to November 11. It covers a variety of dates and mobilizing opportunities. So one of the hopes for me for attending this is to convince all of you to join this global month of action on energy, which is part of our campaign for climate justice. And also, we hope that in a couple of years, as we move towards 2015, which we all know is one milestone in the struggle for climate justice, we will see millions of people on the streets that are demanding climate justice. If we can have millions of people on the street fighting dictators, I think we should have many more people on the streets working for climate justice. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Claire Greensfelder.
It's a little early for me. And I am from the 5 generations of my family is from the San Francisco Bay Area in California, but countless hundreds others that I never knew came originally from Europe, from mostly the northern European area of Sweden, Germany, and Poland. I am here representing 2 different organizations that I'm collaborating with currently, actually 3. One is International Women's Earth and Climate Initiative, of course, that I'm doing policy consulting for. Also, some of you may know me from my work with Conversations with the Earth, Indigenous Voices on Climate Change, which is an international multimedia exhibit on the impacts of climate change on Indigenous peoples and the stories that the Indigenous peoples have written and told themselves through photos, videos, and audio on what is happening in their communities, which was just currently on view in Quito, Ecuador, and Lima, Peru. And we hope to bring it to your door soon. And I've probably collaborated with half of the groups in this room over the last 40 years, and it's a real honor to be here with you. My goal for the meeting is, together with my sister Marta Benavides, and longtime collaborator, is that everyone fully engage in the working groups. And if you haven't already signed up for one, I'm doing a little advertising now, please do so at the break. And we really want to make this event happen in such a way that we reach the hearts and minds of those who already know but haven't taken action, those who don't already know but are ready to know, and those who will know as a result of our work here today. There are millions of women around the world waiting to hear our story, and we need to share it with them. So I look forward to working with all of you to make sure that happens and that we all move to take more action for this urgent climate situation. Thank you.
Hello everybody, I'm from India. My name is Ritu Sogani and I'm working at the grassroots level with women in the middle Himalayan ranges, very close to where you're working. I've been working for the last 15 years for the revival, for the strengthening of traditional knowledge systems in various areas. And my only expectation as far as this summit is concerned is to have some very serious, hard, concrete action at the end of the summit, because we have been, as Rosemary said very clearly yesterday, that we have been talking about climate change for a very, very long time, discussing, analyzing, looking at it from various points of view, but we need some real hardcore action now to do something at local level and global level both. Thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Mary Mavanza. I'm coming from Tanzania, working with the Jane Goodall Institute in Western Tanzania. And there we work with the women at the grassroots, women who wants to bring change, the change that every one of us desires to see. And we work on planting trees, fuel efficiency, socio-economic, and all aspects of life that improves living of the people around there. My goal for this workshop is, first of all, to learn from each other on what they are doing, but also to share what I am doing with the community there. And I know that each one of us is holding one piece of the puzzle, and we need to put it together to move forward. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Neha Misra. I'm here in capacity as 3 tripods. One, geographically, my life is spread between Washington, D.C., Africa, where I work, and India, which is my home. So that is the symbol for a rising global tribe. Second, I'm here as a part of a social enterprise called Solar Sister. I'm also here in my capacity and hope for the world and for all of us to realize the poetry and the artists that we all are to create a better future. So the second symbol being beauty, and which is also my hope for this gathering. And third, what Solar Sister stands for, we are marrying woman power with green power in remote communities across Africa by making women clean energy entrepreneurs, bringing light, hope, and opportunity to their communities and our connected world. So for women who might not have ever heard the word climate change, but who are living it and who are making a difference. So 3 symbols from 3 tripods, and I hope to connect and both get inspired and hopefully inspire in very tiny, tiny way. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Suzanne York. I'm from Berkeley, California.
I work for an organization called the Institute for Population Studies. I'm a writer, and I try to raise awareness about population growth as it relates to social justice, the environment, and women's empowerment. I also volunteer a lot with the Sierra Club and their Global Population and Environment Program as well. And my purpose here at this summit is really to, I think, reiterate what Kelly just said about raise awareness, about the diversity of our voices, that there's so much that we have to share with the world. We just need to come together here and make the links here and then take it out to the world and show them that we're here, we have the solutions, we have the knowledge, and let's do something with it. We just have to find the political and public will to get everyone else to listen to it. Thank you.
I'm Allison Rose Levy, and I'm here as a reporter. I'm an advocacy journalist in the health, food, and environmental spaces on Huffington Post, Alternate, and other venues. I also work in strategic communications with advocacy groups of various kinds, fracking, GMOs, whole range of different things. I'm basically trying to communicate and raise awareness to the public. And very often what we have to deal with in speaking to the general public in the United States is the kind of fragmentation of scientific view, policy view, political view that Vandana Shiva was speaking of last night. And the thing that I'm really rejoicing in and being here is the sense that we are all gathered. And so I think it's important to carry forth the stories and awaken other people to the potential for healing and wholeness for our planet.
Hi, everyone. So wonderful to be with you. My name is Lynn Israel, and I come from Boulder, Colorado, where we've been experiencing enormous floods and making this climate issue so personal right now. Our families and our friends are deep underwater, many of them, and we're really struggling as a community to pull out of that. And I'm just grateful to be a part of this conversation. It's so urgent right now. And I'm here actually representing an organization called Women Donors Network, based in San Francisco. It's a group of progressive women who are philanthropists interested in creating change on the planet, progressive change. And I represent their Earth Circle, which is they're part of the organization that's concerned with climate change. And I'm really here to learn from you all, to share with you all, and to create an agenda that we can take forward that is powerful and where we can really have our voices heard. So I just have so much respect and admiration for what everybody is doing here, and I'm very grateful to be part of the conversation. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Trish from Texas. Thanks for organizing this and putting it all together. And I also want to thank the women that we don't see who have prepared the food that we are eating while we're here, and who also are making our beds and looking after our accommodations. My work is on food security, particularly with respect to agriculture. And I am very much interested in continuing to work on South-South knowledge exchange systems, such that climate change adaptation practices with respect to food can be exchanged amongst women of the different countries of the global South. Thank you.
Bonjour tout le monde. My name is Hindu Umaru Ibrahim. I'm from Bororo community or pastoralism in Chad. Then I'm coordinating a indigenous women and people association in Chad, also from indigenous people of African coordinating committee. We're working with Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance. So I'm working on the ground with the community who are pastoralists nomadic. We are doing, collecting the traditional knowledge on adaptation and climate change, and we are trying to link this traditional knowledge with the science knowledge, science meteorological, to have the best resilience of the communities. I'm looking forward here to working with everyone, having, sharing with you my experience from my communities. Then I'm waiting to see the global women movement go forward for the good solutions. I know that the women have the best solution on climate change and for all the sustainable life for all our communities. So I I want to see when we get out from here, we continue this movement and we fight for all the right and climate change impacting the world. Thank you.
Namaste and good morning. My name is Rucha Chitnis. I work for an organization called Women's Earth Alliance. We are based in Berkeley, California, and we mobilize resources to grassroots women's groups that are using a gender and a human rights perspective to promote food sovereignty, traditional knowledge, and climate justice. What I'm hoping to get out of this conference is a conversation about using feminist and humanistic principles to build a diverse, inclusive movement for climate justice that is accountable to women of color, indigenous people in particular. Thank you.
Thank you everybody for bringing me here. I am Lena Kielsen Holm. I'm from Greenland. I am researcher at the Greenland Climate Center, dealing with the social perspective of the climate change that we in Greenland are experiencing in everywhere, in every way of our lives, both for the hunters and fishermen in Greenland, but also the global world, finding out that there are resources in the north that are getting available to them. So what I want to learn from this is to listen to all your stories and want to bring our stories to you so that we will know better to make a solution for a better world. Thank you.
Good morning, namaskar. I'm Pasang Dolma Sherpa from Nepal. I work with the Federation of Indigenous Nationalities in Nepal, which has covered almost 90% of the total land, working on the issues of indigenous peoples, the concern, and how to recognize our traditional values, customary institution, practices as to way forward for addressing the impact of climate change, for the adaptation and mitigation in Nepal, and how to recognize these voices, unheard voices, in the national levels and the global levels, policies, related programs in the arena of climate change. What would I expect from the workshop? I have also been one of the promoters among 100 women, professional women in Nepal, who established a micro bank for the first time in Nepal for supporting the women on the grassroots levels, for promoting and strengthening their livelihoods and for self-sustain, and particularly focusing on the environmental issues. And also I'm representing as a focal persons from the UN RED programs from the Asia and Pacific. So in my engagements, wherever I go, I see more men, normally in the national levels and dialogues and the policy making with the government agencies, with the Ministry of Forest and Soil Conservation. I'm the only woman among 13s in the policy board. So it's wonderful to see all of you here and all the women, and this has really energized me to do something for our women back home. And then we in Nepal, we are also developing the mainstreaming strategy. So while we develop policies and the mainstream strategy, how to bring the unheard voices of indigenous women who are doubly victimized as a women, as indigenous peoples. And this is really crucial issues, and I'm really expecting that we have ways forward how to address the unheard voices in the arena of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Beautiful to hear those voices of our sisters from all over the world. And we will continue this tomorrow morning and hear from the rest of you. This next section of our program is really to create a foundation together for all the plenary sessions coming up. So we're going to sort of mark the ground of where we stand right now. And we're going to begin with the state of the science, what nature is saying. And we really have the honor of inviting Dr. Catherine Hayhoe to be with us. And some of you may know her. She is an incredible scientist, atmospheric scientist, who studies climate change, and she's an expert reviewer for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and she's going to be Skyped in. She really, really wanted to be here in person, but could not, so I'm hoping our technology is ready to go to bring Catherine Hayhoe to us. Thank you.
Hello? Great. All right. I'm going to share my screen with you in a minute. But first of all, I just want to say how happy I am to be able to be with you here, at least virtually. I'm a climate scientist. I actually get to study every single day what's happening to our planet. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to share a little bit of what we see happening every day in the world around us, and then talk about why as a scientist care about it. So let's see if this works here to share my screen with you. Oops. Can you see my screen? Yes, I do. Okay, great. First of all, I wanted to talk about what we know. We hear a lot of debate on TV and the newspaper and the media about things that we know and things that we don't know and things that we're not certain about. But the field of climate science stands on foundations that stretch back over 200 years. And for more than a century, there are a few things we have known. The first of these things we know is that the entire planet is warming. We often just look at our air temperature as if that was a picture of the whole planet. This is a much more realistic version of what's been happening to our planet. This is all the extra heat that has been going into the ocean, the atmosphere, the land, and the ice of our planet. There is no slowdown in global warming. There is no stopping of global warming. It has been increasing more and more, decade after decade. We also know it's not just about what our thermometers or what our scientific instruments might tell us. We see evidence for a changing planet all around us, much of it in our own backyards. If we look around the entire planet, we see changes in where we can grow blueberries, when the cherry trees in Kyoto bloom. They've been keeping track of that date for over 1,100 years, and they're flowering now 3 weeks earlier in the year than they ever have before. We see the glaciers in Glacier National Park disappearing to the point where they will have to rename the park. We see drought and flood causing $5 billion of crop losses around the world every year since 1980. In 2000, Cynthia Rosenzweig, who is at Columbia University right there in New York, she counted how many different papers have been published studying physical and biological proof of a warming planet. She found 26,500 signs that our planet is warming from the natural world around us. So we know that climate is changing. We know our planet is getting warmer. We also know it's happening because we've been burning so much coal and gas and oil. Scientists agree. 97% of climate scientists, more than 97% of all the papers published in this field agree that not only is the planet warming, but we are the cause. We know that. Are you seeing my slides okay? Yes. Okay, good. Just wanted to check. thing we know is that the impacts are here. It's not a distant future issue. It's not just about the polar bears at the Arctic or the Native American villages and Inuit villages that are crumbling and falling into the ocean as the permafrost melts. No, it's about this happening all around the world. It's about the heat wave in Australia last year that was so hot that they had to put a new color on their map. They had never had 54 degrees Celsius weather in Australia before. It's about the floods that are happening all over Europe and North America. It's about stronger hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico. The impacts are all around us, and they're here today. They're no longer distant or off in the future. The last thing we know is that the risks are dangerous. 2/3 of the world's biggest cities lie within a few feet of sea level rise. A sea level rise that is now happening twice as fast as it was 30 years ago. The consequences for human society, the consequences especially for those who lack the resources to adapt, are enormous. These are the 4 things that we know. So John Holdren, who was a professor at Harvard University and then served as the president's science advisor, he said something which I think is very wise. He said, at this point, we basically have 3 choices. We can mitigate, that's reducing our carbon emissions, we can adapt, and we can suffer. We are going to do some of each. The question is what the mix is going to be. The more mitigation we do, the less adaptation we need to do, and the less suffering there will be. This is the point at which we stand. So at this point, I have to take off my scientist hat because science can only take us so far. Science can tell us what the problem is. Science can tell us why the problem is happening. Science can even tell us what the consequences of our choices will be. But science cannot tell us why we care. Why we care is because of what's in our hearts. And so for me, why I care is a very personal issue. It's because I'm a Christian, and I believe that we are told that the greatest commandment is to love our God and to love our neighbor as ourselves. And today, when we look around the world, it is very clear that we are not loving our neighbor through the issue of climate change. Climate change creates injustices. It creates injustices, first of all, between the haves and the have-nots. It creates injustices also between individual nations as well as within a nation. And it creates injustices between this generation and the next. We are using resources and we are leaving messes that they will have to clean up. And, as my 6-year-old would say, that is not fair. So that's why I really believe that we can do something about it. I think that we can reduce our use of coal and gas and oil, and when we do so, it's actually going to clean up our cities. It's going to help our kids who have asthma. I think we can develop renewables, and when we do that, we're actually investing in local economies. When we go into Africa or into South America, where I grew up in Colombia. I had friends who lived in houses made out of Tide detergent boxes. I had friends who saved their weekly salary to buy 10 bricks so they could build a wall for their house. And when they had a wall, they held a party, and they invited everybody to come. I lived among people like that, and I know how important it is to be self-reliant, to be able to have your own resources and not depend on others, and especially not depend on other countries for what you need. And I think renewables offers a way to do that. I think we can stop being so greedy with the resources that we're using, not just our water, but other resources like food and energy. There is enough to go around if we love our neighbor as ourselves. And lastly, I really, really hope and I believe that we can make sensible choices. We all love our kids. We all want a better future for them and for other people's children too. And so I think that by making good choices, we can build a more secure future, even in the face of a changing climate. Thank you. I should add, too, that although I can't be with you here today, let's see if I can stop sharing my screen. There we go, I'm back. Although I can't be here with you today, I would love to be able to serve as a resource. If I can help in any way with climate science or with climate information, please feel free to call on me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And we will be in touch with our working groups. I'm sure there will be some questions we have for you in one of our working groups about the climate science. And great that you could Skype in. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. That's when the technology works. That's what we need to use it for. I wanted to also just reiterate go back over some comments people made in their introductions. This is definitely about action. We're laying this ground for our working groups, which all are about action. And I really want to keep emphasizing that as we make our comments and go through these panel sessions, that we've been to so many events where we all talk with each other and then we go away and we're not quite sure what happened. So one of the things that we really wanted to focus on is the Women's Climate Action Agenda, which is what all of this work is towards, so that we can really take the time to craft and draft a really important document that we can walk out of here with, that we know is something we want to implement. So I just want to keep stressing that as we're working together, that this is all leading towards these working groups for action. I want to tie in a little bit to last night, something that came up in the conversation with Vonda Nishiva and Jane Goodall. One of the things that has really guided us in this work with the International Women's Earth and Climate Initiative is our guiding principles. And we feel very strongly about having a rights-based approach to the work. And right now, we really need legal bite in what we're doing, speaking of action. And our 4 guiding principles are the rights of women, the rights of indigenous people, the rights of nature, and the rights of future generations. And I want to offer that to all of you because we really think those are the voices that have been silenced and missing from the conversation. And when we're talking about balance and the wings being balanced, I think this is where we need to look, is what we have been overlooking. And so I want to really have that be something we think about as we work towards building the working groups and the Women's Climate Action Agenda. I think that we're in this crisis not because we can't find solutions. We're in the crisis because we're not implementing solutions that are already here. We have solar and wind and geothermal technologies, eco-cities, agroecology, which was mentioned last night, permaculture. We have new economic structures and indicators that our economic panel is going to discuss. And I think this is precisely, exactly where women can make the difference, in the fact that we have these solutions. Several of you have been asking me, so I'm just going to make a quick comment about this, about where this idea came from for this summit. In brief, I had a vision several years ago while walking in the ancient redwood trees in California, which is where I'm from, and grew up with the beautiful Pacific Ocean and the redwoods there. And I began to really think about bringing women from all over the world together, from many sectors, to counsel together at this urgent time. And I just had this crystalline moment where every ounce of my being knew that we could not continue, and we cannot continue, doing business as usual. And I'd been in a lot of UN conferences and different grassroots organizations, and just seeing this immense knowledge and power that women hold, and how we need to come together at this time. But the vision came about because of all of you in this room and the remarkable work you're doing already. And so the idea is, how do we network and collaborate at a much higher level? And the fact is, women are key to solutions. And I'm going to say some of the statistics that we know, and some maybe that we don't know. But again, this morning we wanted to lay a foundation of where we stand. And this next part is really about sharing with you exactly where women have power together. Right now, women are responsible for half of the world's food production, and women standing together are envisioning a world where women, especially those growing our food, no longer own less than 1% of the land and wealth. I think when women farmers are empowered, we are going to see food security. It is women who are responsible for food production and the collection of water and fuel wood, which makes them particularly aware of changing weather patterns that alter growing seasons, decrease crop yields, and lower water levels. This knowledge is essential when we're talking about adaptation and mitigation strategies. The women know what's going on. Women in North America determine 80% of all consumer purchases. Imagine how that market power could be mobilized to reduce carbon emissions through purchasing choices, and including demanding an end to fossil fuels. And let's bring that into our working groups. Really, how can we harness that power that women have, 80% in the global North? Imagine women demanding a change to endless economic growth models and current consumption patterns that are destroying our Earth. That's something we can also teach our children about, how we can change our understanding of consumption. Studies show that whether we look to the developed world or developing countries, when you empower women through jobs and education, some really important things happen. Populations stabilize. We need that. Education improves, and health improves. Economies improve. All of these are foundational to sustainability solutions. When women comprise 30% of the leadership, companies do business better and nations govern better. I'd like that to be 50%, but I'll take 30% right now, but the aim is 50%. Women's decision-making has important implications for climate change. A study of 130 countries found that countries with higher female parliamentary representation are more prone to ratify international environmental treaties. And as a lot of you in this room know, at the UN climate negotiations, women currently are outnumbered by their male counterparts 3-1. But after a lot of hardworking efforts by many women in this room, at last year's conference in Doha, a breakthrough agreement to promote gender balance in the negotiations was adopted. And this is really an important step, but as we know, so much more needs to happen, and a lot of women in this room are gearing up for the next UN climate negotiations to take this further. And studies in the developed world show that women take climate change more seriously and understand it as a danger in higher numbers than men, and therefore they are more likely to take action to do something about it. And I'd like us to take great advantage of this and get a lot more women engaged and rolling up their sleeves. I could go on, but the point is there's an enormous opportunity to engage women worldwide in solutions and actions on climate change. And I'd love to see us draw upon that and really reach out to our sisters all over the world who are not engaged in environmental movements and explain this to them, educate them, and find different ways that we can really expand our movement together. The other thing is we're also asking about a new narrative, and we think women are well poised for a deeper conversation about our inner life and our values. As women, we have something to add to the climate dialogue that is important to not shy away from, and that's our emotional and spiritual intelligence. I remember several years ago, Joanna Macy, who some of you probably know, a wonderful elder of ours, and she told me the story about early on in her career being confronted by several leaders who said, you know, women get too emotional about environmental issues, and that interferes with their work. And I really loved her response. She said, you know, if we can't get emotional about destroying our planet, what are we supposed to get emotional about? So I think this is something we really need to also bring into a lot of these formal spaces and understand that we need to break that up. I had a very powerful experience earlier this year. The Women's Earth and Climate Caucus hosted a delegation of women activists who participated in the largest climate rally in the United States. I'm sure some of you here were there as well. And we were protesting the Keystone XL pipeline. Our campaign is called Women of the Land Speak, and the delegation was comprised of First Nations women from Canada who are living on the front lines of the tar sands and farmers and ranchers living along the pipeline in the US. We held several events after the rally, including one with the Environmental Protection Agency, to express the concerns of the women. And in addition to the powerful presentations these women delivered about the science, the legal issues, and the devastation of their people and the land due to the tar sands and its infrastructure, the thing that really stood out the most to me during one of the question and answer periods is a young woman who stood up and asked about how these impacted women were dealing with their grief. The entire room went completely silent as the First Nation women expressed how they actually had no time to grieve because they had to fight for their communities and land, and that stopping to grieve would mean more time was taken away from the fight at their hands and the protection of their communities. And also how hard this is for them because of the loss of loved ones due to increasing high cancer rates and the massive destruction of their lands and way of life. As they spoke, tears rolled down their faces because it's really hard to talk about grief without feeling grief. And at that point, the entire room began to grieve with them. And actually, Casey Camp was there and offered a beautiful prayer to the room at that point. I mention this because afterwards, I've never had so many people come up to me and say that this conversation made them get even more dedicated to their causes, more committed to action. And so I want to invite in the fact that grief and our emotions and our spiritual perspectives, opening our hearts, is also part of the solution and part of something that I think women have a great deal of strength in. And we have this special relationship that we need to really find a way to share in a lot of the formal meetings we're doing, and also when we're conveying these subjects, and not shy away from our emotional and spiritual intelligence. Women also have a very special relationship with nature, with the earth, with Mother Earth. It's not better than men's, but it's very specific, and I think it's been silenced, and we need to bring forward more and more this understanding of Pachamama and how women relate to the earth in a deep way that also will be very, very healing for our conversations as we go forward. So the last part I want to bring up is about the Women's Climate Action Agenda, and Claire Greensfelder and Marta Benavides are going to be co-facilitating this, and they're really incredible facilitators and have worked in this field for a long time. And our goal is to have this Women's Climate Action Agenda be something that brings forward a lot of impact, and we're looking at two different channels with it. And I want to present this now so you're thinking about it as we go into the panel conversations. Two different streams, two different channels. One aspect is we really want to look at policy solutions because we know we need to have very strong policies put into place. What are the most important policies that we need to address right now for the most direct action to really confront the crisis straight on? We also want to look at on-the-ground solutions. A lot of you are practitioners. We want to look at what are the best on-the-ground solutions in your issue areas. So these are the two streams that we're looking at, and in each issue area in the 8 working groups to really go into both policy as well as on-the-ground solutions. And as you're hearing this conversation, let's bring forth both these aspects of the solutions for the climate action agenda. All right, so I'm going to move on and invite up Sally Ranney to complete this section on women standing tall. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm going to use my computer for notes today because my printer died on me this morning about 5 minutes before leaving. But what I want to share with you, and maybe many of you might know this or not know this, but for the word crisis in Chinese, there's 2 characters. And the first one means danger, and the second one means opportunity. So that's exactly what we're dealing with today, is the tipping points where we don't want to go over the edge, and the opportunities, identifying the opportunities. And I would add one more thing to what Osprey said is policy on the ground, and what is the pathway to implementation. There have been so many targets put out by so many people for 41 years, starting in Stockholm. And they keep getting added on to addendums, but really action on the ground and in policy, those pathways, how do you really get it done? And how do you get it done now? We're faced with scale and replicability. So I would add, as we're looking at our working groups and our agenda, that you think of those two things as well. I want to tell you just a little story that my background really is, and I wanted to ask a raise of hands, how many people here connected with nature as a child because of some experience, their mother, their father, their grandfather? How many really connected? Yeah, it's almost everyone. And this is the point that Jane Goodall made last night, is that the younger generation, that is a challenge for us. But my love of nature came from my mother, and also when I was very young, I married a rancher. And I came to this work actually through cattle ranching. And I had to work outside every day, and I observed biodiversity, and I observed conservation of precious water, and we had to work sustainably on our land to ensure our security, our economic security and our food security. And my ex-husband's grandfather was the first conservationist I ever met. He had 3 rules. He did not have a formal education, and this gets down into simplicity, that women around the world, people around the world can understand. So we don't get into too many of the parts per million and things that confuse folks. He had 3 rules. One is always leave half your grass. You don't know what the next year is going to bring. Number 2, be prepared to share your water with your neighbor, because someday you're going to be knocking on their door and asking them to share their water with you. And the third thing, which has to do with livestock specifically, he said never kill a predator unless it is absolutely the last resort. Put them into your bottom line. They were here first. So there are some basic rules that we have digressed from in how we're treating the earth and how we're treating each other. And I think that as we look at these agenda items, these action items, that Vandana last evening was talking about connection and narrative. And as we think about these action items that we're going to recommend, this is going to be published and go out to heads of state, members of parliament and Congress, CEOs of companies. This is something that is really going to be distributed widely so that we have influence, that we have clout, and we have critical mass in what we're recommending. She was talking about connection and the new narrative. So I would suggest, as you're thinking about this, is reflect on that narrative and how that feeds into the solutions that you're recommending. Because we've really got 3 tools that are coming out, or 2 tools that are coming out of this summit, and that is the agenda, the action agenda, and the declaration that you can take home and distribute. And the third thing, of course, is then the next piece of that is building the global women's climate action movement. So I have some thoughts that I want to share with you about as you're thinking about this agenda. We have global goals, but the implementation is on the local level, and local can mean communities, states, provinces, regional, and even national. And what we can offer, what women can offer, is on the ground. It's estimated, I learned just the other day, that 150 countries do not have the technical capacity to do a national climate plan, mitigation or adaptation, or a countrywide sustainability plan. So what's going to happen as this prevails, if this continues to prevail, is there are going to be thousands and thousands of local initiatives and projects that will accumulate into a plan. Now, the drivers of the shift that we want that are now essential range between economic structures and indices to transparent governance. Governance is really, really key. And peace is really key. You cannot have sustainability without either one of those. So we need to think about that. Examples of, key drivers that change the biosphere are really how we treat ecosystems and how we deal with the ocean. 2/3 of the planet, and I bring up oceans because it is included in one of our working groups, but often it is a stepchild of these kinds of sessions. So I'm hoping that, that we really do address that. And obviously deep decarbonation is necessary, and beyond those targets, we hear that 30% renewables by 2030. And the truth is, because the markets and the stock exchanges and the investors are not organized to fund sustainability. They just aren't. So we hear these numbers and we're going, oh, that's really great, but there is no plan, on the ground plan, for how you actually get there. So the actual number is 7 to 8%. But on the other side of that, 15%, there's 15% growth per year. So if we unlock the investments, which would be a pathway of how we get there, how do we unlock those investments? Risk management, there's some people in here, women in here who are really good business people and finance people that know more about this than I do. But I do know that that's one of the pieces. So when you're thinking about, what's the price tag for your action item? What's the real implementation 1, 2, 3 to get it done on the ground? I think we should also, while you're working about synthesizing our priorities. And so how do we do that? Well, where are the number one opportunities? Where would we get the most traction? How does it address one of the major tipping points that we do not want to go over? What has to happen in the short term, the midterm, and the long term? Okay, it's like the other day at a session I was in, somebody used a soccer game as an example. There's 90 minutes in a soccer game. You're in the 85th minute. You have 5 minutes left. You're losing. So what do? Do you try to run out there with a short-term strategy and try to win the game right there, or do you figure out how you can really get that last 5 minutes so that you have time to plan your strategy? So I would invite you to think about the short term, the midterm, and the long term actions. Do we have shared evidence? All of you have different experiences, but I know you have shared evidence, whether it comes from nature or policy that isn't working or is working. We have shared evidence. I'm sorry, I have to use my computer here. The other thing I would ask about thinking about the new narrative in international negotiations, climate change is hardly mentioned, and I think climate change has to be embedded into sustainability solutions in that narrative. And Osprey touched on this, but intergenerational responsibility and the moral imperative is getting dropped out of, and this is what women bring to this, and we should never lose sight of this. It's being dropped out of the negotiations. The language isn't even there. The moral imperative isn't even there. I would invite us to be so strong on that piece, not just for humanity, but all future generations of all living things on this planet, upon which we depend. So I invite you, you know, the 7 generations forward that's much wisdom, and we need to share that. What are the breakthroughs? Think about the breakthroughs that you've seen in your countries or in your own work. And then I wanted to touch on this again too, on categorizing. If you have 3 recommendations and there's policy, is that policy economic? Is that policy environment? You know, where does that policy fit in? Is that gender and empowerment? And then in your implementations, obviously, how you get there. And of course, integration, cross benefits. And I think that's something that when all the working groups give their reports, is we can see what those cross benefits are. And I'd like to see us put those cross benefits into a conclusion to our agenda. Because we're the connectors. You know, you've heard connecting the dots, but we're connecting that health is related to climate change. You know, we're connecting that the financial markets and the way they work now have perpetrated what's going on, and that needs to change. So we want to do that. And then the boundaries. There's global planetary boundaries, there's local boundaries. You know, ecosystem boundaries, carrying capacity. And again, scalability and replicability. That is so key now. So I think I've addressed just about everything. I wanted to share something with you which I think is overall positive. As I met with James Hansen yesterday, and we were talking about what our carbon budget is. And he said that he and Bill McKibben are going in the same direction. 130 gigatons is what we have left to emit on the planet if we want to stay at 1.5 degrees centigrade. So my question is, and I don't know if anybody in here knows the science behind that, but if we recommended that, how would we use that? If that's our budget, how would we use that budget of CO2? Would we use it to ramp up renewables? Would we use it for sustainable agriculture, repairing the soils? What would we use that for if that was our budget? And that can help us prioritize as well. So those are my thoughts that I wanted to share with you about how we might think, some of the things we might think about as we go through the working groups and come out with our recommendations. Thank you very much.
Hello. Okay, while they'll come up with the presentation, I'm going to talk from here because I'm too short to be up there. When Yousry asked me to do this presentation, I was so honored. And when I started writing it, I started becoming a little bit concerned because I knew all the women there. And then this image of this young man in the past Rio meeting, he had a t-shirt that said, "Were you in Rio 20 years ago?" And then he turned and said, "What the are you doing here?" So, because gender inequality is the most pervasive, and unacceptable condition still in this 21st century. So please accompany me in this journey to try to bring tribute to some of the women and men that have paved the road for us to be here. And the past is linked with the present by an unbroken chain of events. Each one of you have been part of this chain that has been flowing one to another. Next one. The Rio era. Can I see some hands? How many of you were in Rio? Who? Yes, bandana. Who can forget Bella? Who can forget? And I'll tell you a joke, not a joke, an anecdote about Bella. I went to this tattoo shop, and I was looking at a magazine, and 5 pages were possibilities of doing a tattoo with Bella. And I thought, my goodness, if you can get down to this situation, you are and were one of those inspirations. Next one, please. Who can forget the Rio, the first World Women Congress for a Healthy Planet, the Women Action Agenda, the Women Tent. It was a real tent that gathered thousands and hundreds of women. Chapter 24 of Agenda 21, one of those visionary documents that came after that, and 145 references. That's what the movement, that's what the women were able to achieve. Next one, please. And the Rio Conventions. So after all this push that the women gave, we have right now UNEP, when a Gender Plan of Action for 2006, the CBD, a Gender Plan of Action for in 2008, UNCCD. The 3 Rio Conventions and the GEF have part-time gender focal points, and the CBD and UNFCCC recognize women as a major stakeholder. Next one. But there have been those that have endured, and some of them are not here, but Ulrike, Minu, and Marta Benavides back there. How many of you were in COP1 of the Climate Change Convention? Okay, so you're part of those that have endured since there, and we honor you for being with us since that part. Next one, please. And the new alliances. Who are the new alliances in climate change? Next one. We have the GG Secretariat, the Women Constituency Group, advocacy team. We have women like Bridget and Ira and Sian and Ulamila, and the specialists like Lian. Lian, where are you? Lian Shalatek, our leader on finance. Red, Andrea, Janet. Energy, Gail, Anna, Sheila, that are here, that has also been with us in this process. Next one, please. And what are all these new alliances achieving? Cancun, the first agreed text, Durban, 19 references, and the first gender-responsive climate change strategies and red roadmaps in the world. Next one, please. And the champions from the field. Can I see how many of you work in the field? Do practitioners, real work, like Rosemary, like Dora, like the women from the Peruvian Amazon, and the million of women that every day face climate change. Next one, please. Women leaders that have embraced gender as well. Next one. We have Christiana, we have Julia, we have Sally with us, and we have Mary Robinson. These are some of the women that have been champions and some of these leaders that are with us as well. But, next one, there are some of those men as well. Next one, please. We have Akim Steiner and Amek Jotlov that developed and promoted gender in their institution. And we have here today Ted Turner that has always also been one of those men for making possible the Girl UP campaign and every woman, every child. So Mr. Ted Turner, you are one of those men today with us. Thank you very much for that. We have Ben Kamour from Liberia, first party to demand gender considerations in UNFCCC. Next one, please. Felix Feldman, Germán Antonio Vargas, Alan Bold, René Zelaya from Mozambique, that had said, my program in Mozambique on climate change, it's all about women and girls. And that he will not negotiate. Next one, please. But there has been those that has left us too early as well. Those two colleagues, Marie Can from the CBD and Camarunga, should have been with us here today. Next one, please. So the past was worth remembering and knowing in its own right. It is not behind us, but under us, holding us as a foundation for all that was to come and everything that have ever been. That's us, that chain, all of us together, working and fighting for the right of women and men to make this world a most just and democratic world. Thank you very much.
It's an honor to remember colleagues, sisters who've been part of this struggle and been such an inspiration. The Europeans were complaining a lot that I was abandoning them for these 2 days to come here. And I said, that's where I started 4 decades ago with the Chipko movement. And there's a part of the Chipko slogan that was about climate change already. Yeah. The Chipko movement to protect the Himalayan forests challenged the idea of growth which measured trees which were killed as contributing to growth and trees that were left standing as not contributing to growth. And I remember a particular occasion, it was 1977. The government had tried to be smart and said, okay, we won't give private commercial contracts. We will create labor contracts. And in a village called Advani, it's the chief of the village who got the contract for the labor, of course. The timber went nationally, globally. And it was the wife who led the protest. And women had come from all over with lanterns. And the police was there, the forest officials were there. And they said, why are you carrying lanterns during the daylight? And they said, not to show light to the sun, but to show you light. Because you think the main products of the forest are timber and revenue and resin. Resin because the pine tree gives a resin that is a very important raw material. And we want to tell you that the real products of the forest are soil, water, and pure air. Then we had flooding in '78, and the government realized the women were right. The budget for flood relief was much bigger than the revenues from logging. And one of the exercises that is worth taking up as a women's network is add up all the damages. I remember about 4 years ago when they were talking about how much would be the commitment on climate change relief. I think it was about 30 billion they were talking. That was the damage done in India in 1 year due to extreme floods in one region and extreme drought in another region. If we start adding the costs of all the climate chaos and show the sums, this idea that we can't afford to change the economy will be buried just like the idea that the forests of the mountains were timber mines was buried in 1981. as a result of a movement that fought 10 years, day in and day out. And when the floods were there, then they said, but the pure air business. But there too, women were way ahead of their time, because the pure air issue was linked to climate change. One of the things we should definitely say no to is the commodification and financialization of the ecological services. The conversion by trees of carbon dioxide into oxygen, how can you own that as a commodity to trade on Wall Street? 1985 was the first time the Women's Conference in Nairobi introduced ecological issues. Wangari and I brought women and ecology. And that's the time my publisher said, write a book. I said, I've given up writing. I shucked the rat race of academics, publishing, etc. She said, write it as a subversive book. So I did. I wrote Staying Alive. We already had the remembering of the public hearing in Miami that led to the establishment of We Do with Bella and Wangari and Marilyn Waring. And I dedicated my time to the Convention on Biological Diversity. And I remember once sitting around, we found suddenly the men were no more there. Part of it was pressure was brought, men are in the club. So it's easier to pressurize. Women are outsiders. So that's when we formed the Diverse Women for Diversity, to counter the monocultures of the mind. WTO, DWD took on the World Trade Organization, and we said WTO is women take on the World Trade Organization. We will not trade away our lives. We will not. Our world is not for sale. That was the slogan in Seattle. And one of my favorite things in Seattle was the Raging Grannies. All 80 and above women from Canada, brilliant. I want to wrap up in the 30 seconds. You are such a brilliant timekeeper. Next year will be 30 years after Bhopal, since Bhopal. And we've been talking, and yesterday there was a little discussion. Those chemicals in agriculture have a role in climate change. Nitrogen oxide is 300 times more lethal than carbon dioxide in damaging the climate. And it comes from nitrogen fertilizers, which also are killing the oceans and creating dead zones. So Laura and I have been talking over the last few days. So I think in addition to everything else, we do need a call to stop the chemical warfare on the planet and our lives. And while the last 2 decades were decades of specialization, some of us went off to the climate negotiations, some of us went off to the CBD, some of us didn't go off anywhere and just did the work at home. I think the time has now come to make the connections across the issues and at all the levels. And it's the day we make those connections and make those connections alive and fertile that the change will come naturally. It'll flow like a river. Thank you.
Just on the program, we're not going to actually take a break. If you need to take a break, just go ahead and go in and out as you need to so we can sort of catch up on our calendar. Okay? Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, there's a little change in a scheduling here. We're now at our food, our farmers, agriculture, seeds, and food sovereignty. We have Dr. Hala Ahmed Mohamed Yousry from Egypt, myself, Colleen Ross, a farmer from Canada, and Dr. Vandana Shiva from India. I would like to ask Dr. Hala Ahmed to please come forward with the first presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Hala Yousry, head of Rural Sociology Department at the Desert Research Center. From the Pharaoh's grandsons and daughters, I'm coming with huge greetings from Egypt to everybody here to send you the whole blessings for the encouraging expected outcome to come from here. And I'm forwarding all best regards from all Egyptians to you here. Next, please. We are coming here to represent these ladies from the south of Egypt in nearby Sudan who are, next please, helpless, who are voiceless, who are waiting for our decisions to be taken to support their life, to help them having a sustainable livelihood in their societies. Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. As you can see, these are from different parts of indigenous communities in Egypt. These ones are from the northern, western part of Egypt. It's desert areas and the ladies who are harvesting, you know, the food and the feed for us. Next, please. Okay. As you can see, I could classify our community and around the world into two models. First model is countries with rich natural resources. And I could believe that the source of problems in this area is absence of future vision on how to deal with agriculture as industry. Like we heard that they are dealing with tourism as industry. In this way, I think we will have a lot of innovative ways to deal with agriculture and rational utilization of the natural resources. In most of our countries, either there is no or poor planning for agricultural policies and programs. We also have no or weak management with the context of sustainable agriculture. We don't use the appropriate technology in agriculture, in harvesting, in handling, packing, and lots of post-harvesting losses. It occurs in most of our countries. Frequent conflicts between agriculture and environment, and I don't know when this will stop, because unless we will get the agriculture scientists with environmental scientists, there will still be a struggle among them. And we always forget about corruption. Corruption, this is something that we have, okay. Suggested solutions, primary, participatory and multidisciplinary approach can be the start to solve many critical thematic issues in our globe. Promote social capital networks to effectively contribute on formulating policies and programs at the national level. Maximize corruption through activating corruption conventions, because there is corruption convention around the globe. Promote women and youth participation on decision-making process. When we're talking about action, so territorial approach should be applied to widen the community participation. Sustainable production and sustainable consumption approach should be our trend and should be adopted by governments and civil society as well. The North countries have a responsibility towards humanity through technology transfer and know-how transfer. And this is like the model of solar ovens, where this is very obvious at the desert areas in my country. Thematic issues should be like the global, on the global, should be, okay, I have the sign for the timing, goes up and down. Okay, like food security. Women and environmental issues should be mainstreaming within the national policies and programs. And this is something very important. And also gender and environmental sensitive budgeting also should be recognized on the national level. Activate the conventions of fighting corruptions, also important issue. Set up a group of national and international indicators for democracy. And we have to have, this is on a transparent base. It should be on a national level and international level. The second model is the countries with poor natural resources, and this is a harsh environmental conditions, like we're having floods, drought, and desertification. Lack of adaptation strategies based on vision, transformation, or flexibility to cope with political, socio-economic, and culture, and technological and environmental changes. Low quality of human resources due to high rates of illiteracy, hunger, poverty, and illness. Fragile ecosystem structure, and weak or no management applicable plans in case of disasters. Suggested, okay, I will leave this for you. You know, I think the presentation will be online, but I would like to address the full involvement of the civil society and stakeholders into the decision maker, into the decision-making process on the environmental and socio-economic and cultural level. This should be on the national and international level due to sectoral, like hunger, like illiteracy, unemployment, labor issues, education, and health. And last but not least is the documentation of the indigenous knowledge and practices within our indigenous communities to assure their rights and to develop their ways of handling their livelihood and to sustain their livelihood for a better life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sister. My name is Colleen Ross, and I have the privilege of being a farmer. I've been a farmer for my entire adult life. I farmed in Australia, and I farmed in Ontario, Canada, and I'm farming now in British Columbia. And it is a privilege that I work outside every day. I harvested before I came here on Tuesday so that my food could go to some local cooperatives on Wednesday, and then I started traveling on Wednesday and I arrived here on Thursday. And I will go home in time to harvest again for next week. It's such a privilege to be a farmer. And if you read anything, in my bio, I mentioned that my daughters are farming. I have 3 children, and my oldest daughter, Jessica, is 28, and she now has her own organic farm and is supplying amazing amount of food into Ottawa with her partner. And my daughter, Melanie, they're both brilliant young women, university graduated, and they've chosen agriculture. My second daughter is a beekeeper, and they both are farming organically and are amazing young women, and my son is involved in green energy. Growing food is a feminine activity. It's about relationships. And my male partner on the farm used to get frustrated with me when I talked about the relationship that we have as farmers. And it's not just with the people that who buy our food. We narrow the gap between the producer and the eater. I don't like to call people consumers. We're all eaters. We bring that together face to face. And it is a relationship. I have a relationship with the seeds and the soil, and what I do is a very feminine activity. It's very meaningful. Over 30 years, I was not always so politically conscious. I was a farmer. I was growing food. I was engaged in my work to grow food that went out into the community. But while farmers in this world were so busy in the soil and with our hands in the soil and our backs bent, we were being betrayed. And it came a time for us in a global movement to stand up and to look around and to realize that we were being betrayed through trade agreements, through the patenting of life forms, that it became a criminalized act for us to save in exchange our own seeds. It's our inherent right, it's our habit, it's what we do. It's intuitive for us. And then suddenly we became criminals for doing this. We were being betrayed through trade agreements that made it illegal for us to even have local food in our institutions. Currently, Canada is negotiating a trade agreement with Europe where embedded in this trade agreement is that it would be illegal for us as farmers to have preferential treatment locally with institutions who would want to buy our food. It would give us unfair trade advantage. So if you can just go through the slide. So these are some, in Via Campesina. So I rose up. It's a calling. I'm a farmer. I became the vice president of the National Farmers Union, and then National Farmers Union are founding members of an international organization called La Via Campesina. And in Via Campesina, we are in a struggle. We are in a global battle. And in order to be in a battle, we need to know what we're struggling against, and we need to know what we're struggling for. And some of the things that we're struggling for me as a farmer, is sometimes it's so unreal that I have to be entrenched in these meetings, such as the Convention of Biological Diversity and Genetic Resources, where I have to be there and I have to stand up and I say, these are the decisions you are making, and this is how it's impacting us as farmers in the North and in the Global South. And it's a great privilege for me to be able to work with farmers from all over the world, visiting farmers in India and in African nations, for example. And when we share our stories, we realize we have a common struggle. We are dealing with issues such as UPOV, the Union for Protection of Plant Varieties. That was an institution that was supposed to protect farmers' rights. And now, under UPOV 91, the clause that would protect farmers' privilege to save seeds, the Canadian government, for example, is trying to accede to that UPOV 91, which would completely take away what they call our privilege. It's not our privilege, it's our responsibility. So this is what some of the things that we are struggling against. Next slide, please. In 1996, farmers from around the world and our allies came together at the World Food Summit. And we came up with the concept of food sovereignty. We need to go beyond food security. We need to talk about food sovereignty, which is the right for all peoples, countries, or states to define their agricultural and food policy. Next slide, please. And then in 2007, over 500 participants from 60 countries, led by La Via Campesina with our allies. This is where we gathered in Mali. It isn't quite the Crown Plaza in New York. But there was important work done, and miraculously, we came together after 3 incredibly hard days with a consensus document, which is now the International Declaration on Food Sovereignty. Next slide, please. And that is what we're struggling for. In Canada, farmers are less than 2% of the population. But one of the hopeful things that we have in Canada and in the Global North and in the Global South are more and more young women. More women are becoming farmers. They are practicing biological diversity in agriculture, agroecology, and that's something that Via Campesina is also now starting training programs. One is in Cuba to bring young people in to agriculture, to learn ecological agriculture. And on my farm, I have many young people come. Some of them are engineers. Some of them are professionals that are deciding that they want to become farmers, and they're coming and they're working with other farmers to decide whether or not they want to choose agriculture as a career. It is a viable opportunity. In a room this size, I could grow a lot of food. I could feed a lot of families. We can do it. When we understand the soil, when we understand the seeds, we can be climate ready. We can mitigate climate chaos. And in Canada, we are experiencing what we call climate chaos. Our storms are more regular, our storms are more severe. We are having drought and flood and microbursts. But when you are biodiverse as a farm, you always get a crop. We are not only climate change ready, but we are also mitigating climate change, and we are rebuilding communities. We are rebuilding the food system. And I would just like to, what I want to get out of this conference is not just a talkathon. That we just don't academize, I call it, what we need to do here and talk about it. But what we need is to rise up. We need a resistance movement. Just the next slide, please. In Via Campesina, we always end our conferences with something that we gather to say in our own language, which is globalized struggle and globalized hope. And I just encourage you all to understand that this is a revolution and a resistance movement. And if you can just join with me and we can say together, globalized struggle, globalized hope, and if you want to say it in your own language, that is great. And this is how we say it. We say globalized struggle, globalized hope. Say it with me. Globalized struggle, globalized hope. Thank you very much. Vandana?
So when it comes to seed and food and agriculture, it is a women's economy. Most farmers of the world are women, and most women of the world are farmers. And then if you take Osprey's figures of food decisions, more than 80%, whether it's at the production end or, I hate the word consumer, it means to die of consumption. The medieval interpretation of consumption was to die of TB. We don't want to die of planetary TB, which is what climate change is. So we prefer to refer to people who make conscious choices about what they're eating as co-producers. Because in making that choice, you've already shaped the food system. Now, the biggest contest at this point, in my view, for women is the fact that food, seed, food agriculture, which were left as activities that didn't count, that didn't contribute, were insignificant, are suddenly the biggest sources of profits. Mm-hmm. And now 5 corporations want to control the seed, 5 want to control the trade in food, 5 want to control the processing, and 5 want to control the retail sector. So we're talking about 20 giants. And every trade treaty is being written by them, for them, to criminalize the free economies which women have shaped and through which they have nourished life. Yesterday, Sally referred to the Supreme Court decision about corporations being legal persons. And that's the contest. We've got legal persons in the fictitious corporations who are patriarchs, corporate patriarchs, versus women and children of the world and the earth. That's the polarization that we witness every day. And it's to deal with that polarization and to deal with the absurdity and obscenity of claiming to create life and own life that I started Navdanya in 1987. Navdanya means 9 seeds. It also means the gifts of the commons. And what we've been doing is saving every seed we can. In 87, we didn't realize some of the seeds we were saving in the coastal areas would become vital to deal with climate change after the super cyclone in Orissa, where the US was dumping GMO corn and soya and the people were rejecting it. We were distributing salt-tolerant seeds that the farmers had evolved. And then the tsunami came and we took 2 truckloads of the salt-tolerant seeds down to Tamil Nadu. After the cyclone Nargis, we tried to take them to Burma, but the junta didn't allow. Community seed banks, 110 have been created to reclaim seed as a commons, but also to reclaim diversity in our fields. You know, every one of these squashes and every one of these corns is illegal in every patent law, breeders' rights, the UPOV, and seed laws. Distinctiveness is criminal. Two traits have been given to us through genetic engineering. Both have failed. They didn't control weeds. They didn't control pests. We got super weeds, super pests. And so 2 years ago, we did an assessment written by the movements on the ground. It's called The GMO Emperor Has No Clothes. You can find it on the Navdanya website. They're now trying to bring GMOs through this thing called golden rice. Put vitamin A into rice when the vitamin A is there in the greens that women used to harvest. And there are ads in India where Monsanto says, liberate yourself, use Roundup, which in effect is killing the greens that provide the vitamin A and provide the iron. So for the iron, they want to do genetically engineered banana, and we have a huge campaign linked with Uganda, which is the second biggest. India is the biggest producer in each of banana. We don't trade in banana internationally. Uganda, staple is banana. And Ecuador also has those 3 countries. Women's groups are joining up, and we've launched this No to GMO Bananas, Protect Indigenous Biodiversity and Knowledge, which is women's knowledge. We also call this campaign the Iron Ladies for Life, not Margaret Thatcher. So 2 years ago, we realized there was this big assault by these corporations simultaneously in every country. And each of us was doing our work locally and nationally. So we decided to create a global citizens campaign on seed freedom. Seed freedom is both the freedom of the seed as well as the freedom of farmers to save seeds and the freedom of eaters to know what they're eating, which is why the labeling battles of this country are so vital, including the one going on in Hawaii and the Washington state and everywhere else. So we've decided to dedicate the fortnight. I mean, I've been doing this since 1995 with the World Food Summit. When we collect our energies and focus them, it leads to a whole different change. It's like a laser, you know. It's the same amount of energy, but you focus it and you can cut. And we've got to cut down that old paradigm. So a fortnight of seed freedom and food freedom, from 2nd October, Gandhi's birth anniversary, largely to recognize that what Gandhi taught us and what the civil rights movement of this country picked up, that unjust laws create slavery. And to create justice and freedom and democracy, you have to have the courage to say no to unjust laws. I won't go into the details of how we do it, but it's time for women to stand up and do it. And 16th October, from 2nd October to 16th October, which is World Food Day, this year Monsanto has given itself the World Food Prize for saving the world with new biotechnologies, which have totally failed. And so they're giving themselves, you know, the naked emperor is strutting around even more naked and saying, clap for me. So I think one of the things we should do as networks across the world is find the women, the local farmers, the seed keepers, the mothers and the grandmothers who carry that amazing knowledge of feeding for nourishment, not for death. And to create real food heroes so that those 5 corporate giants do not cripple us into shutting down our future. If you want to know more about the Fortnight of Action, visit seedfreedom.in, and we've got a lot of material there that any community can transform, adapt to their local conditions. But I'm hoping that from this year up to the Expo, and you know, the Italian government has appointed me on the board of women in the Expo, which is dedicated to feeding the world. This is the Expo in Milan 2015. And I'm going to tell them, put a wall for the real food heroes so that we can honor the earth and honor ourselves and honor our ancestors and honor the future. We don't go down? No, we don't go down. Oh, I thought 6 minutes and over. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Any questions from the floor? Where's the roving mic? Okay, Casey, and then there's somebody over here.
Yeah, just specifically on the last bit that you were speaking of, the Ponca people have recently reclaimed 4 of our original 5 corn seeds. We now have the yellow, the red, the black, and the white, and they have been lost to us for about 150 years. We now have a new agriculture department, and my son and a couple of other young men have worked hard to bring those back home. We're living in conditions now, because we're in Oklahoma as opposed to Nebraska or Nebraska, which is our original homelands, that our seeds, I'm not certain, will be viable where we are, as well as the pollution that is there as a result of ConocoPhillips, continental carbon black, landfills, on and on. They tell us that we can't grow organic food within an 8-mile radius of where we live. So I'm wondering if there is a suggestion that any of this panel might have that could help us in our situation.
Thank you. If I'm understanding you right, the seeds that you have, you are afraid they're not going to be viable? Correct.
Being is because we're in a different growing area. We're in north central Oklahoma now, and where our seeds come from, because they were taken from us by the U.S. government. Monsanto hasn't got them, by the way. Mm-hmm. And so they're still in the original condition, but we were living in what is now called north central Nebraska and southern South Dakota at the time. So those seeds are from that area, plus the area that we're living in is heavily polluted.
I'm really excited to answer this question. Seeds are really intelligent. I used to farm in Australia, in Queensland, in the tropics, and then I farmed in Ontario, which is a similar bioregion to here, and now I'm farming in more of an arid area of British Columbia in the mountain region. And I've actually had, one thing we do in Via Campesina is we trade seeds, and I've had seeds that I grew squash in Australia, and I actually grew the same squash in Ontario, Canada, and then I've grown the same things in British Columbia. And I've actually even had seeds given to me from Japan and indigenous seeds from other parts of the world where I put in my Via Campesina plots, and it grows. Seeds are really intelligent. Sometimes I have to use my own farmer knowledge in order to create a specific environment on my farm to encourage, a little bit longer more heat unit. But seeds can adapt. Don't be discouraged. I was given indigenous seed called Luther Hill, which is a white corn, and I grew it in Ontario, and then I brought some of it to BC, which is an entirely different bioregion, and I grew that Luther Hill indigenous white corn. It was this year very successfully. So don't let that concern you. That seed will grow. Put it in the ground. Just use your knowledge on what that crop is, what it needs. I grow edamame soybean. I grow eggplant, and I even grow okra and bitter melon, which are not supposed to grow here. And when I first moved to Canada, people said to me, "You can't do this, you can't do that. Oh, that won't work here." Yeah, somebody told them that. You can do it. Just allow the seeds to use their intelligence.
I'm going to come supplement that. Here. I just want to add that, there's some crops that have very specific regions. We do seed saving of every crop. Rices we cannot move across the country. East Indian rices don't grow in the West. Warm climate rices don't grow in the higher areas. So we have to have very specific regeneration. And our farm in Dehradun is growing 670 varieties, but the Orissa seed bank is growing another 750 varieties. But corn has a much broader adaptation, which is why it goes all the way from Canada, all over the world. Where doesn't corn grow? So we, right now at home we are teaching a course on A to Z of ecological agriculture, agroecology and organic farming. 1 week on living seed, 1 week on living soil, 1 week on living food, and 1 on the politics of food. And the last week we teach evolutionary breeding, because seeds are intelligent, they're living, unlike the assumption of Monsanto, which treats them as raw material. And only native seeds can adapt. The heavily engineered seeds collapse. They have no adaptive capacity. In fact, the adaptive capacity is robbed from them. So native seeds adapt, they change, and our knowledge and selection and breeding is vital. But your second question on organic and the toxic, after the tsunami, which brought a thick layer of black pollution from the bottom of the ocean, it looked like there could be no agriculture. We did organic within a season. We'd remove the pollutants. I work with the organic farmers of Fukushima. And the organic farmers, they didn't realize this, but the soils under organic cultivation have removed the radiation. Because organic farming allows the growth of soil microorganisms, including fungi, which have the capacity to pull out heavy metals, radioactive materials, etc. And I think our challenge as women is to allow the intelligence of nature, her diversity, as well as the intelligence of women and centuries of knowledge to be counted, to be listened to, because that is what is being eclipsed.
Okay, we take a couple more questions, and I'm not sure if we have a
She's
virtual...
saying zero. Zero.
Okay.
You gave her the word that you would...
I have the mic.
No, she won't.
Oh, she is. Okay, we're going to be real quick.
Okay, my name is Rosemary Aney. In 2008, I had the chance to interview 300 women farmers in Ghana. And one of the problems that came up was they had these women farmers who did tomatoes, and they said they couldn't compete with the subsidized tomatoes from Italy. And so the problem was not that they were not growing, they were growing, but because they had cheaper tomatoes from Italy, they couldn't compete with them, and so they kind of had a collapse. And so one of the issues that we have in Africa is that dumping of subsidized food from either Europe or America into Africa, competing with the local market. How can we address this? Thank you.
Should I? Very quickly. And the Italians are crying because cheaper tomatoes from Northern Africa are killing their tomatoes. The point is exports are subsidized. And exports are subsidized, which means corporations get the subsidy. That's the $400 billion bill, which is still at stake in the entire WTO process. They've reduced themselves to Doha Light when they go to Bali. But I think we need to look at every new free trade treaty that is being framed, whether it be in the name of the G8 investment corridors for Africa, or the AGRA, or the Latin American free trade treaties, or the Trans-Pacific free trade treaties, or the Transatlantic free trade treaties. It's like they're doing an overkill of free trade, and freedom for corporations is all that free trade captures. And that is where distorted markets get created, where costly food becomes cheap and is dumped and destroys local production. All of this has to be taken up. Patenting on seed is illegal, illegitimate. Free trade that allows dumping is illegitimate. Now, the corporations won't ban it. The governments that are helping corporations won't ban it. So we have to organize to be able to defend our local food systems by creating the resilience at the social level while also creating the resilience at the ecological level.
Okay. We have one question that's come in from Egypt, and then we're going to close the session.
Actually, I got an Arabic comment here, and I was really happy to see Arabic words, but it's backwards anyway. They said that all the statement I addressed, it's totally correct, and they are looking forward that these statements would be achieved on the real ground. In this position, I honor very much the declaration. It's really one of the things that it's really should be disseminated as wide as we can. And really, I honor this very much. And for the dissemination, I think translation should be very important. And we in the Women Major Group, we took this action before for wide dissemination. This is as a first step. The second step, this should be advocated on UN level. Second thing. Third thing, should be translated into action plan on 3 levels, on an international level, on a regional level, and on the national level. And I think if we are trying to translate this declaration, this wonderful declaration, into action, I think we will be like halfway, of the achievement on the ground. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next panel can come on up, and while they're doing that, I just want to follow up on a comment so we're all really clear, and we're welcoming your input on these documents. One idea that we had is that the declaration statement is a call to all women of the world that we can sign. I love what was just said about bringing it to the UN level, to all these levels and getting them out, so thank you so much for that comment. The Women's Climate Action Agenda is the second document where we're going to really go into a lot of details about implementation at the local, national, and international level. So that's why we have these 2 documents, one that's more a call out to all women of the world to sign, the other with deep implementation strategies that we can work at the levels that was just discussed. So I wanted to just point out why we're having these 2 documents, but we keep welcoming ideas about how we can use them and how we can refine them. We have a wonderful session now on water, and we'll let you go ahead, Casey Camp. Thank you.
Thank you. So the first thing that I would do is to introduce the guest of honor. And I would ask you all to raise your glasses together. And for all of us to say thank you to the life-giving force of this sacred blood of our Mother Earth, our sacred water. Thank you, water. We appreciate you.
Thank you, water.
Pretty good, huh? Not much like it. I was seeing where Michelle Obama was going to encourage people to drink water. And I was remembering back when I was a little girl. We didn't have to have much encouragement, There wasn't, we didn't even have Kool-Aid when I was little, right? So water was the natural force in our lives, and it was in a way that is beyond what we take for granted today. When I was a young girl, the women in my family would go up when the sun was rising in the morning with a cup of water. And they would thank the day for coming. And they would sing a sacred song for that day, for that morning. And they would offer that cup of water back to our Mother Earth so that my generation and the generations to come would always have water, because we were taught that water was our relative, not that water was a commodity. We didn't have a faucet that turned it on. I didn't even know anything about flush toilets until I was 8 years old. And I remember the surprise when I went to a store and we used the indoor bathroom and you could actually, the water was in there already, because I never occurred to me that water was to abuse in that manner. Now I take it for granted because I have that in my home. But at that time it seemed a little bit ugly to me. And I think that in many ways that we have forgotten the relationship that we have with this sacred being. That is not something that we can explain in very simple terms. So being here from the perspective of the indigenous values that I was brought with, I'm learning so much from everyone else about their perspectives, and it's so different to me to consider that we're having various workshops on these issues, because they're also interrelated, as we all are, with all of our relatives in all directions. Maud Barlow's unable to be here on this day, and through the magic of Skype, this is another thing, I don't use a computer, so all of this is pretty neat to me to see all of these things happening where people magically appear. I could go in my sweat, hey, that's a different thing. But, to have a living being appear this way and share her knowledge and her ways with us. I think all of you are familiar with her, and if you're not, you will become familiar with her and her work through this magical way of Skype. And then this awesome woman on my right here will introduce herself to you and share her knowledges as well from another viewpoint. But I believe we all come from the same place in understanding the sacredness of water. Are we going to go to Maud at this time? Yeah. Hi, Maud. The magic Maud is here. This way and share her knowledge and her ways with us. I think all of you are familiar with her, and if you're not, you will become familiar with her and her work. This magical way of Skype, and then this awesome woman on my right here will introduce herself to you and share her knowledge as well from another viewpoint. But I believe we all come from the same place, understanding the sacredness of water. Casey. We're going to go to Maud at this time.
Well, hello, Casey, and hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
She's on the delay. Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yes. All right, sorry, I'm hearing some feedback here, so I'm just going to go ahead and speak and hope that you can all hear me. I'm very, very pleased to be here, and I'm very sorry not to be with you in person this morning. I had my ticket in my hand and was on my way, and I got called home to an ailing mother, so I'm very, very sorry, but I'm there in spirit with you. By the way, Casey mentioned Michelle Obama's asking us all to drink more water, and I just have to say that she also was doing this sponsored by the big bottled water companies, which I don't think is something that we want to support. I'm sorry, I'm hearing some feedback here, so I'm just going to go ahead. So I'm going to talk, we were all asked to speak about the source of the problem, the solution to the problem, and also actions. And so I'm just going to briefly talk about the issue of water and the global water crisis and why it means so very much to us that we need to put water into the climate debate and the climate solutions. So what is the problem? Well, the problem is that our modern human societies have stopped seeing water as the most essential element of a living ecosystem, and instead see water as a resource for our pleasure, our profit, and our convenience. And so we are taking up ancient aquifer water, we're damming and diverting our rivers to death, we are polluting and displacing and mismanaging water to the point where there are whole river systems, there are whole aquifer systems and whole watersheds disappearing quickly around the world. We're taking up water that belongs to future generations and other species as if it will go on forever, and I assure you it will not. Just one study done by the big industrial water users said that by 2030, our demand for water in our world will outstrip supply by 40%. So it's really difficult to explain what we're talking about here in anything but really stark terms. We need to understand this. Now, when most climate people talk about water, they talk about how greenhouse gas emission caused climate change is harming water negatively, and that's absolutely true. What we don't hear as much, and what I want to put into the mixture here, is that our abuse and displacement of water is one of the major causes of climate chaos and global warming. That what happens when you destroy water retentive landscapes, you heat up the land around it. When you cut down a rainforest, the rain goes away. And we are creating deserts in over 100 countries, not only because of the warming of the air, but because of the removal and displacement of the water that maintained a healthy hydrologic cycle. What is the solution? The solution is a new water ethic that puts water at the very center of our lives, puts water at the center of our policies. We need to fiercely protect water. And we have to share it more equitably. These are absolutely key concepts. We can only do this based on the principles that water is a human right, water and sanitation, which recently was adopted by the United Nations, but is still not a reality for billions of people around the world. We have to say that water is a public trust that needs to be cared for collectively by people in a democratic and open way, must not be allowed to be hoarded, traded, put on the open market for sale. It must not be allowed to be taken up for profit by corporations or the private sector while people are dying from lack of water around the world. We need to say also that water has fundamental rights and that we need to make our human laws more compatible with the laws of nature to protect water, because it does not just belong to us. It belongs to other species, it belongs to the ecosystem, and it belongs to future generations. And we can build and design language in our laws that actually articulate this reality. What are the actions that we need to take? Governments at all levels must, and this is going to come from a movement, Vandana talked about this, must commit to protecting water and to restoring watersheds. All activities and all policies, whether they're energy, which does not just hurt our traditional energy sources, the air, but hurts the water, particularly biofuels. Biofuels are no answer in our world when they destroy so much water. Whether it's food production, and corporate industrial food production is the major culprit in the destruction of local water systems, whether it's economic policy, whether it's development policy, it all has to conform to the protection of watersheds and the restoration of watersheds. And it has to be backed by law. Martin Luther King said, legislation may not change the heart, but it will restrain the heartless. Now this means challenging the current notions, the current narrative of unlimited growth, unlimited corporate free trade agreements, a policy for the 1% by the 1%. I don't believe that we can either deal with the climate crisis or the water crisis or the two combined if we don't challenge the system that has allowed some to profit from the destruction of the earth while so many are hurting. Finally, the climate movement, and I'm really hoping this will enter our discussions this weekend, and I did write a paper that's on the website, that the climate movement must take water into an account. It must incorporate the issue of water both into its analysis and its solution, that restoring water retentive landscapes is absolutely crucial to reversing climate chaos, because when you bring back watersheds, you bring back vegetation, you bring back a healthy hydrologic cycle, and that restores and renews the temperatures. It brings down the climate, the global warming. So I urge us this weekend, and I reach out my arms to you. I'm so sorry not to be there, but I'm there in my spirit. When we're deliberating on climate, don't just look up to the air and the atmosphere, look down to the water, look down to this precious gift of Mother Earth, and protect the waters, because it is simply, in my opinion, the most essential, most threatening ecological and human rights crisis of our day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your words, and thank you for being here in spirit. We appreciate that. Very quick. Speaking of spirit. So many things come to mind when we listen to the wisdom of others, and it comes to mind to me that all of us were born in water. All of us were in water in our mother's womb. All of us, when we come to earth as indigenous people, are offered the taste of water on our tongues so that we may continue on. And this milk from our mother's breast is the same thing as we're all enjoying at this time so freely and so easily. And yet we understand through the medicine people and through the ways that we have at home that this is a gift that has been taken for granted for so long that we have forgotten how to say thank you and how to give back to that sacred water. So we're going to offer this time to another viewpoint and another point of wisdom so that we can learn more about that, and then we're going to have some more discussions with you about what we can do to give back to the sacred waterways of the earth. Thank you. Can you introduce yourself, please? Oh, yeah.
So natural, all right. Good morning to everyone. I'm so honored to be here and excited to be here with all of you. And particularly, it's such an honor for me to have this opportunity to talk about water, which is such an essential thing to all of our lives, not only our generation, but the future generation, and not only human beings, but our Mother Earth ecosystem. So thank you so much for the water. Thank you so much for having me this opportunity. Well, how many of you actually know the GEF, Global Environment Facility, which I am from? Wow, this audience is actually, it's very exceptional. If I ask that on the street, actually nobody really knows about Jeff, so I'm again honored to be here. In fact, you mentioned that Maud mentioned that we have taken the water so granted, and take the water for granted so long, which is quite true. But actually, maybe 20 years ago at Rio, the first Rio summit in 1992, world leaders came together and actually think about how we could do things better to protect Mother Earth. And that's the time that the GEF, Global Environment Facility, was born. So in that spirit, at least 20 years ago, the world leaders have this notion that we can't really take those things for granted. We need to come together and to do something. That's the way that GEF was created. But then for the past 20 years, how much progress we have really made? It seems to me, we have made several progress here and there, small battle. We are kind of winning the small battle here and there, not only water, but I'm talking about global environment in general. But if I think about a maybe bigger picture, I think we are still losing a big war. So how we can really find a new way of doing business to in a sense, to our way of life back on system, so that we don't have to exploit our future generations' assets. So that's something actually I was really interested in working for the GEF. Well, as all of you know, that our Earth ecosystem has been at a critical danger for years, and going forward, that danger will be just increasing. We are facing the three big mega trends like a growing population, the middle class, and urbanization. It's going to be where it's an opportunity because it's a growth at the same time. Unless we manage it carefully, it will put our earth ecosystem and our life very much on danger. So the ocean and our water system, the ocean, the river, the basin, and the underground water system are not exception at all. Actually, I would say the water, in a sense, is maybe the most difficult challenge we are facing. Why? I think we all know in this room that to win the political support or public general support for the environment is very, very challenging thing because that it's easy to exploit an environmental benefit to my immediate benefit, but the cost of exploiting it will be borne either by my neighbors or by my future generations. So how we can take those externalities back to our way of doing system. So so this free rider question is really the heart of this global environmental problem. And water, in this case, this tragedy of commons, we call it tragedy of commons, is so acute in case of water because the river, ocean, a lake don't respect the man-made national border. So we really don't have a good system to bring those goodwill on the table. So to me, that is the source of the problem. I got 3 questions from organizer. What are the source of the problem? What are the solutions? And how we can make that solution work? So to me, the first question, the answer to the first question, what's the source of the problem, is this nature of the water as a global commons. I mean, the tragedy of commons. So the second question I was asked is that then what are the solutions to deal with this tragedy of commons? Here, I would say maybe two key elements. I think that we are already talking about landscape approach or maybe ecosystem approach. So the first element to the solution is rather than taking the things is an individual sector or individual theme or only the national basis, we need to pay attention to to take the things as more like an ecosystem-based approach or landscape approach, regardless of this national boundaries. So that's the first element. The second element is because the river, the ocean goes across the national boundaries, we need to find an institution or governance structure to bring all stakeholders together under the common platform. And I'm not talking about just nice things or things just dreaming. In fact, there are already a lot of good examples of a large marine ecosystem approach or that high sea tuna project. So there are some ways and example which take this ecosystem approach, ecosystem-based approach, and also bring all stakeholders together, but it's still very much insufficient. Let me talk to my third question. The third question I got, what are the key elements of success to this solution to work? Let me say just 3 things. First, as I already talked to you, this is that the institution or governance structure, how we can bring those different stakeholders beyond national boundaries, beyond sectors, together under the one platform. So again, if I have time, I get back to you with some example, but that's the governance structure. Institution is number 1. The second element is knowledge. What are the incentives of those different people, diverse people to come together? We sometimes talk about valuation of natural capitals. If we can actually employ this to put more effort to value the natural capital, it will give you the more incentive to come together. So that's the second element. The third element, and I promise this is my last element, is actually that the partnership, the particularly the private sector. We usually talk to the government or national government, but we need to really bring that much more diverse stakeholders, and particularly private sectors. And of course that the communities and the CSOs are there, but how we can really bring the private sector under this platform. So there are, again, the good example, but it's not really good enough, so that we continue to aspire to those three elements together to make this solution work for us, for our children, but also for our Mother Earth. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So many things come to mind when we have the opportunity to listen to others. And some of the things that are coming to my mind right now, I live within where two rivers come together there in Oklahoma right now, our Ponca people do. There are 600 to 800 of us that live locally, and we've been having a funeral a week for the last 10 years. And I can't explain to you how devastating that is unless you know Montana Feathers is coming, being born with bone cancer, unless you know that our children are not making it to fruition, unless you know that your aunts and uncles are all going to die of various kinds of cancers, unless you know that your sisters and brothers are dealing with lupus and other various kinds of diseases that are coming from our environment. So with the extractive energies, using the amount of waters that they are, and things like the REDS program, who are saying that ConocoPhillips can pollute my people there at Ponca Nation so that they could save another indigenous people's land someplace else. These are all false solutions, these carbon trading things. And these are all false solutions, even to go into the private sector and say that we have to allow them to be the ones to tell us how to understand the sacredness of water. I think it's more of an individual, community-based approach, as you were speaking of, that we have to help each other to get to those points of understanding that water herself, water himself, has a memory, has a life, has a way to give to us, to share with us. But this is a gift and a sharing. It is not our right to dam it. It is not our right to use it in any other way than it was intended in its relationship with us. So we're going to open for questions, because I just won't quit unless you talk.
Thank you very much. I think mine is really not a question, but just to compliment. And thank you very much for presenting that. Because water is really sacred. It's life. And for example, in the communities I work with, they hardly get water. They have to walk for long distances. But in the past 3 years, what we did was that there was a small river, and we decided to get some little funding to pull water to the village for the women. And that was in a dry area. And it made a lot of difference. First, it cut the hours of the women going down to the river, where they could spend maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, depending on where they live. And now, because of the climate change and prolonged droughts and all sorts of climatical changes that the people are facing, and in those communities, the pastoralist communities, women do everything. They provide food, they build the houses, they do everything. And so we said, now, livestock is dying, as we had even yesterday when Rosemary was presenting, and what we needed is an alternative. What did we have to do? We had to introduce the pastoralist women on farming. And I bring this because of the previous presentation this morning. And that water did a lot. Because from that water, they were able to pull the water and get do some small farming. And it has transformed the community. It has made everybody look different, and even the health and the whole health of the family, from children, from adults, and even from the men around. So it's really, water is very, very crucial. And one of the most important thing, as the GEF Executive Director was presenting, is the issue of partnership. Is very crucial, and also looking at the ecosystems. But we need to look, how do we relate that to the climate change, and how do we relate to the conservation of our biodiversity, and to guard our traditions, so that even if we look at our alternative lives, how do we make sure that our indigenous communities still hold on to their tradition? They have the knowledge, they have that knowledge which they have to guard, and this is very, very crucial. So I just wanted to bring that to you to show and to add to what you really value, or what we really find great value in looking at the water as something that is very holistic and very important to us all. Thank you.
Yes, yes, and thank you for those comments. Which brings to mind another thought. We've talked a great deal about the people say the word paradigm, a shift in consciousness. So my shift in consciousness and the challenge that I would give to you is to change your attitude of what is power. Power is not Walmart. Power is not Shell Oil. Power is the Father, Son. Power is the Moon Mother. Power is the Mother Earth. Power is the sacred water, the air that we breathe, and the fire that warms us. That is true power, and that is what you are made of. You are the power. Yeah. Switch it. Switch it. Do we have other questions?
One more.
Oh, I see so many arms out there. And this is a timekeeper, but I wanted to tell her in Ponca there's no such word as time. I don't see her.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I come from Bangladesh, which is a lower riparian, so everything from the Himalayas would flow down to us, all the rubbish, but also a lot of siltation, and that was very healthy for us. But in the name of development, there have been dams developed, and it's impacted on the rights of the water and, of course, the community. And I was very interested to hear your emphasis on governance, institutional governance, and the reference to beyond borders. We can't sit at the same table at the government level to have this conversation. And if you look at the water treaties across South Asia, some of them actually impinge on sovereignty. The water treaty between India, Nepal, Bangladesh, and whichever country you're looking at. But when the politics is in the interest of the government, they have resolved it. We see the river treaty between India and Pakistan happen. So it is so important that we are struggling against not just the corporates, but also national governments with a partisan view and a nationalistic interest. And here we are talking about communities who don't have that sort of voices or opportunities. Is Jeff creating such opportunities? Will it be able to support where we can really take up the issue of the rights of the river, the rights not just of the people, but of the river itself?
And that's directed towards you, I believe.
Well, actually, I cannot agree more. In fact, one thing which I feel really, really proud of what Jeff has been doing or has done is to avert these regional conflicts which came from how to share or not to share the groundwater, the river water systems. Because there are so many cases where this unsustainable, uncoordinated exploitation of this shared common and global common system reaching this or occurring and ending up the regional conflict in a very, very fierce way. So that we have been able to arrest some of them, not full, but this is something I really want to share with you. I mean, the Global Environment Facility is working for global environment, but I believe that the most useful when we take up this global common system. I mean, that as you said, the challenge is how to bring the community together, but the national government together to come up with the meaningful platform. And that's why I mentioned that the valuation of the natural capital is so important. It actually will have some impact on the way of thinking. Not only the community people, I think that they already know a lot, but then how we can influence the thinking of the national policy, policymakers is a huge challenge. And particularly, that how to bring those value which cannot be really measured the way it it's there today. But how we can bring the value of the future generation and the neighboring countries, that is a challenging thing. But I think we are making some progress, good example here and there, but we just continue to promote those examples more and more. So, but I really need your help too, to how to bring those voices up front to the national level, the policymakers level, so that our challenge just continue.
Okay, I think we're going to wrap up real quick, but we're talking about voices here. There's a voice in here. There's a voice inside here. All right? And so because they don't speak English, and because they don't say the same thing in the same way as you do, doesn't mean that your direction cannot come from the sacredness of this water. That you could ask the water itself in your area, and that you can treat it sacredly in your area. And that you begin, there was that old saying back in the 1960s about let peace begin on earth and let it begin with me. Let the respect for the sacredness of water, air, fire, and earth begin with each one of us today.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Swati, and I'm from the Global Forest Coalition. I work on forest issues in India. We have two very exciting speakers with us today. Mayalu Txucarramae, welcome. Mayalu is from the Xingu region of Brazil, and she's one of the first women breeders to emerge from there. We're very grateful to have you here. She'll be Mayra Iragaray from the Amazon Watch will be doing the translation, will be a consecutive translation. Our first speaker though is Namadamu from the DRC, and she's going to be speaking on the rainforests and the threats from mining and her hopes and solutions, her big challenge like that. So very much welcome.
Thank you. Go ahead, yeah. Good morning, everyone. And good morning for Mama Shuja. They are watching for us from Bukavu. And we say thank you so much to be here. I'm so honored, but we have a problem about time. You know, I'm traveling for hours and hours across the ocean to come here to this summary. And when maybe they got to show me 1 minute left. And I have that problem with time. And when we do this and we say we don't have a time, and why we plan that? That is a big challenge we have. And I present the Association of Women calling the Mama Shuja, or Her Women in English. And I'm from Democratic Republic of Congo. The Mama Shuja talk about lot for new Congo. And we are in vision to talk about that. and we have to talk. I don't know where is time, but I have many to talk about, but I have small time. My speech will go to be online. And let we go from where we are sitting, what the world hope for Congo is not enough. The world see only, the world see mineral, Congo's minerals, wealth. That is second, but people doesn't see how Congo is second large forests in the world after Amazon forest. And people need water, people need oxygen. I think people doesn't think about that. When people talk about Congo, talk only about minerals. But we have to think about environment. When I'm born in the forest calling Itombo forest. When I was a child, I would see animals. Kids play with animals and the forest, and everyone, we eat fruit from forest. We don't do plantation to eat fruit, different fruit. But still today, no forest, and we would have a river, children go to wash in a river. But this still today, no river again. I already see climate change. And I don't know how we can do. I'm here, we can go directly to make strategy. Is why I'm here. How we can work together to know power for this mother, power for indigenous people. They are forgotten. Power for Africa. My country is heart for Africa. And if heart is strong, everybody can be strong, and the world can be strong. I tell you, let we go also, I don't need to tell about importance. Forests are for everyone. Doesn't matter where you are. You can be in America, European, and everywhere, but you need to breathe, I think. And everyone can go to study or to need something, but breathe from our mother, from our womb. We breathe. Everywhere we breathe, and we need that. I get right to point. We need to become sober about taking care of this lifeline. Congo is rainforest. Right now, Congo is plenty, much lost to almost of world because the enormous conflict of tragedy of the conflict. But let's not be naive. Yes, Congo has the world's second large rainforest, but its mineral storage dwarfs the rest of world in comparison, 8%. The planet, the treasure, the mineral is in Congo. And we can't stop to exploit the minerals because the world needs that. It's example like Equator with petrol. And world say, community international say, okay, we are going to pay, don't stop to do that. But now Equator say, no, we need money. Let's plan for that. Let's plan how we can explore. Oh, I see my time is finished, and we are going to talk. And what I want to do is to plan idea, propose a strategy that will empower this international body of women to take the step to ensure that the Mama Shuja intentional for Congo, the Congo will need it. Set a new stand for development nation state. Thank you so much.
Eu me chamo Maia Luco, cometi o Aurá Txucarramae. Sou do povo Kayapó e Waurá.
My name is Mayalu Kokometi Waurá Txucarramae, and I am from the Kayapó and Waurá people.
Sou filha do Megaron, meu grande inspirador e um exemplo de luta. 25 anos ele vem lutando contra as barragens para que defenda, para que não tente parar a destruição das águas dos nossos rios nas nossas terras.
And I'm daughter of Chief Megaron, the biggest source of my inspiration. For more than 25 years, he had fought against dams in the Amazon to protect our territories and our rivers.
25 anos, ele e meu avô Raoni, grande representante dos povos indígenas do Brasil, vem lutando contra essas barragens, contra essa mineração, contra as ameaças que Xingu vem sofrendo.
For 25 years, him and also my grandfather, Chief Hayhoe, a well-known leader all over the world, they've been fighting against dams and minings in our territory and for indigenous rights.
Hoje, eu tenho 26 anos, tenho 2 filhos e agora deixei eles para poder estar nessa luta, para conseguir aliados, para que nós paramos e pensamos que os rios e as águas são sagradas para nossas vidas.
Today, I am 26 years old, and I left my 2 kids home to be here, to be fighting for the rights of the rivers and the rights of life and our rights.
Meu povo não precisa de estudo, não precisa de cientista falando para eles que o mundo está acabando, que a humanidade está se acabando.
My people do not need scientists or studies to tell them that the world is coming to an end.
Eu aprendi que tudo é sagrado porque quando nós morremos, quando nossos avós morrem, eles voltam para a terra e se transformam em rios, em floresta e em animais.
I learned that everything is sacred, that when we die, all of us, we transform ourselves in water and in the environment.
E antes de meu avô morrer, ele disse isso, que era para me cuidar da terra, que era para me cuidar do rio e das florestas, do meu território onde ele foi enterrado.
And before my grandfather passed, he told me to take care of the rivers and the forest and take care of my territory, where he was buried.
Hoje, o governo brasileiro quer acabar com o índio.
And today, the Brazilian government wants to end the indigenous people.
Não respeita a própria Constituição que eles fizeram, junto com os povos indígenas, de garantir o nosso direito de terras tradicionais, direito a rio, direito à vida.
And they don't even respect the rights that is in our Constitution, the rights for life and for the water and for the territory.
E a terceira maior hidrelétrica do mundo é a que está destruindo Xingu.
The third largest dam in the world, Belo Monte Dam, is the one that is destroying the Xingu River now.
Os rios da Amazônia estão ameaçados, porque as hidrelétricas estão tomando conta dos rios Xingu, e nós, como estratégia, estamos nos unindo povos que antigamente eram inimigos.
And the Amazonian rivers are being threatened by many other dams. And now as a strategy, indigenous people all over the country that historically were enemies are getting together and are uniting themselves.
Para defender o que o mundo fala, o que eu escutei, o que eu ouvi falar, que a Amazônia é o coração, é o pulmão do mundo.
To defend what I've learned, that people say that the Amazon rainforest is the heart and the lungs of the world.
Então, se eles estão acabando com esse pulmão, vocês também serão afetados. E as únicas pessoas que têm condições, que têm a ligação direta com a terra, para cuidar disso para vocês, está sendo acabado.
And so, if the government destroys, and if the world destroys the lungs of the planet, you are also going to be affected. And we are the ones that are the gatekeepers of the sacred place, and we are being destroyed. So you are also going to be affected.
É por isso que eu venho trabalhando com jovens, conscientizando jovens e mulheres para que nós juntos podemos se unir e mudar a situação, essa situação, defender com garras a nossa terra.
And that's why I've been working with the youth and with women so we can unite ourselves to change the situation.
E para que isso aconteça na nossa terra, no meu povo, nós precisamos de ajuda de vocês, compromisso de vocês.
And for that to happen, we need you. We need your help and the compromise of yourselves with us.
Compromisso de pressionar o governo brasileiro a garantir os nossos direitos, a respeitar os povos indígenas.
We need you to help us to pressure the Brazilian government to respect our rights and indigenous rights.
Precisamos de apoio financeiro para mobilizar todos os povos em favor da terra, em favor da vida, porque hoje nós estamos aqui por uma causa só, a vida humana, que eu vejo que está doente, que o planeta está ficando doente por causa da ganância humana.
The world is getting sick because of all this willing for wealth, and we need your help. We need financial help so we can gather all the peoples to fight to protect those sacred places.
E eu quero a ajuda de vocês se comprometendo em assinar petições, em compartilhar informações, em buscar informações do que está acontecendo na Amazônia, porque eu sou a prova de que índio existe e o homem tem um equilíbrio, pode ter um equilíbrio e harmonia com a terra.
And I ask your help to support us, get information, share information, sign petitions. I am the living proof that indigenous people still exist and they can still live in balance with nature.
E eu sou essa voz hoje representando a população a população indígena brasileira que vem sofrendo com essa ganância, esse desenvolvimento desenfreado que esse progresso, esse democracia está nos obrigando a fazer.
And I am this voice coming from the Brazilian indigenous populations and coming here to talk to you because I am affected by this so-called democracy that we live today.
E eu quero, junto com vocês, achar a solução para manter a nossa vida, o nosso direito garantido. Não queremos perder a nossa cultura e nem nossas terras.
We don't want to lose our culture and our lands. I need to find solutions with you.
Enquanto eu estou aqui, o governo brasileiro está assinando leis para acabar com o índio. Então, hoje eu peço a ajuda de vocês. Pelo meu filho, pela minha filha, pelos meus sobrinhos, eu peço que vocês me ajudem a garantir um futuro melhor para eles. Obrigada.
While I am here with you all, the Brazilian government is signing laws to destroy our lands, and I ask your help so I can protect the future of my kids, my daughter, my son, and my nephews, and my future as well. Thank you so much.
One thing that constantly amazes me is to see places where there's been a very strong tradition of community management. In the last 100 years, we've had new stakeholders, firstly in the name of conservationists, scientists, and more recently, the first solution which have given rise to carbon finance, carbon trading, requiring a whole lot of new skilled experts to come into these communities, become stakeholders, and feel completely legitimized in being able to do that. And so we have this displacing of traditional managers with completely outsiders coming with a very different view of the landscape. Instead of looking at the forests and the rivers and the air, it's a carbon stock. Such and such is a wasteland. I currently work in extreme west of India in a place called Kutch, which has had a very strong tradition of pastoralism. It's a grassland. And Kutch has been classified as a wasteland in India for the last 60 years, and introduction of Prosopis juliflora. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's one of the plants that's planted in a lot of places to make it appear green. And now with the carbon credits coming in, the grassland is just seen as a total wasteland, the pastoralist system is seen as an unproductive system, and the forest management, which had left this area largely alone after Prosopis took over the landscape, is all going in there to set up plantations and destroying this highly mobile pastoralist community that has lived. And so, you know, I hear women like this who've lived with the forests for such a long time and have such a vision. I think we need to be very strong and fight the false solution, fight the false stakeholders that come and insinuate themselves in these debates, in these dialogues as legitimate stakeholders in areas that really don't belong to them. I'd like to open the floor for any questions or comments.
Why, I'd be delighted, thank you. My name is Casey Camp. I'm from the Ponca Nation in Oklahoma, and as I mentioned earlier, ConocoPhillips, as well as other extractive practices, are killing us there. So my question would be to both of these ladies, if they're aware of the REDS program, REDD, and if their nations have been approached to participate in those. And if so, I'm wondering if they understand that that particular program causes people like myself and my Ponca people to have to endure more pollution, and it's much like the bullet being given to them for them to shoot us and kill us by this false solution.
Sorry, yes, both of you.
Thank you for your big question, and I can try to answer your question. Please, is it this program? You say what?
The rent.
It's a REDS program, and it is to ask other indigenous nations from other areas. For instance, ConocoPhillips. ConocoPhillips in my area would be able to ask people in your area or in her area to plant trees, for instance, and as it has happened with the Aboriginal people in Australia, to plant trees, and that those trees would hypothetically grow up and create oxygen. And so that allows ConocoPhillips then to pollute more where I live and to kill the water and the air and the earth where I live. I'm wondering if REDS has touched your country yet.
Where I can say maybe it's touched my country, but big problem we have, our indigenous people, they are forgotten. They don't know to read, they don't know to write, they don't know to live where the other people live. And they was living, have a good land in the forest. Now with development, where I can call development, they put them out. And that they don't have land, natural land they were having. And they need that. Now they are there, no voice, and how they can participate in this meeting. I would think maybe this meeting must be in Africa. To think how about you can empower those people. They are forgotten in this life. And our indigenous is not our leaders. You have experience. You can help us how you can make this happen. And they are now moved in forest, in natural, when they was living, they don't have land. Now they became again slave with colonialism, and it's finished, it's become slave to people who neighbors, because they come to work for me, for example, and I give old clothes. And they don't have where they can say anything. They don't have a voice. Now we are here to take action with you. Thank you so much. Maybe another meeting can be in Africa. We need that so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, here. Yeah. Thank you for the presenters, and I want to talk to the.
She has a response to the red. Sorry.
Desculpa.
Sorry.
No Brasil, eu vou focar mais no Xingu.
I'm going to talk more about Xingu in Brazil.
Lá, nossos direitos estão sendo violados, como a Constituição nos garante o direito de consulta, e isso não está sendo feito.
Our rights of consultation has been violated. They have been violated.
E com isso, eles vêm colocando mais leis e leis para tirar todo esse nossos direitos. Então, eu creio que RED entrará quando nossos direitos já serem esquecidos.
And they are creating more and more laws to take all of our rights. I believe that RED will probably be implemented by the time we have no rights.
É contra essa violação que nós vemos lutando, gritando e enfrentando o governo.
And that's against this violation that we've been really fighting the government.
Para que não aconteça com outros povos indígenas que eu estou vendo aqui, que hoje já não tem mais terra, que hoje vive na miséria.
So that it does not happen the same as it happened to some of the indigenous people here that do not have lands and do not have rights and live in misery today.
É só isso que eu tenho a dizer sobre essa violação dos nossos direitos.
That's what I wanted to say about the violations of our rights.
Yes.
Thank you for the presenters, and my comment for the last presenter. Yes, the indigenous people has been treated not nicely before, but now they are recognized and they are invited in the UN meetings, and they have special major group within UNEP, and all the international organizations are the indigenous people are recognized and honored and heard. So this is a good step that we reached. Now we have to open the floor for trust, for building trust with other organizations. What strikes me that you said that we do not need the scientists, we do not need the academia, but I think if we all work together, I think the scientists and the academia might provide you with a better platform for a better vegetation, for a better treatment for the animals, for a better livelihood in general. And this is something it's very important. And I think you can louder your voice by networking. You can. What's that? So networking is something very important you can do to louder your voice, to have your voice heard, and maybe you can deliver the messages that you are suffering from. Thank you.
Did she have a response? She wanted to. Yes.
Look there.
Yes, I just. Good response. Did she want to respond? Você quer falar?
Sim.
Você quer falar com ela a respeito disso?
Sim, eu vou responder.
Então você pode responder.
Obrigado pela sua colocação e.
Thank you for your words.
E quando eu digo que os povos indígenas têm a intuição mais forte que o cientista, é porque, sim, eles têm, só que nós não estamos descartando a ajuda do cientista, a ajuda de organizações.
We are not saying we do not need the help from scientists or from organizations. We are saying just that we have a higher intuition towards things.
E hoje, no Brasil, com os povos indígenas, nós temos 19 ações dentro do Brasil e uma internacional.
We have today in Brazil 19 lawsuits locally and an international lawsuit against the Belo Dam.
E isso pode mostrar que nossos direitos não são respeitados com a questão da consulta. Nossos direitos, nossas vozes não estão sendo ouvidas.
So we've been looking for these rights, but our rights are not being heard. We are not being consulted.
Sim. Aquelas organizações, não digo organizações, mas um órgão que protege o direito humano, às vezes está falhando muito com todos os povos, porque eu estou vendo que estão destruindo os rios, que é um direito humano, que dá vida, que é a essência da vida humana, e isso está sendo destruído.
So some organizations say they protect indigenous rights, but I am not seeing that on a daily basis. The rivers are being destroyed and our communities are being destroyed.
E nós estamos aqui para realmente juntar alianças, fazer alianças para proteger a nossa terra.
And we are here to really build real alliances so we can protect our lands.
Obrigada.
Thank you.
One last question, lady in yellow. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for all the presentations. I just want to say that DRC is part of the Congo Basic, yeah. Then we have the regional organization who's called it COMIFAC, who is a political institution, sure. But in this one, we have another organization who is especially for the indigenous peoples there, who call it Repaliac. Sure, this one, it's not involving women into the forest protections. As you said, this forest for us, it's like a supermarket. So we get our food there, our medicine there, and our life is really attaching to this one. So these organizations are not really involving women and the activities of the women doing on the into the forest. So maybe here we can see how women can be more involved in the red police, because they are seeing that as a man activities. All the industrializing activities into forest, it's managing by the man and by the big industry. So when it's faced to the right of the people in the forest, they're just pushing the man who are going to say, no, it's our forest, it's our communities. Then they are forgetting the needs of the women, then the participations of the women in these forest management and forest negotiations. Thank you.
Do you have a response? Yeah, I think we should close the session. No, do you have a response?
No, I think we can just close.
Okay, all right. So, thank you all. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
No, yeah.
We're going to have a few announcements before lunch, but I want to just highlight the fact of having voices from both the Congo forests and the Amazon forests. These two forests are the lungs of the earth, and I just think it's really exceptional that we've been able to hear from women from the two most important forests, including, of course, Indonesia, which didn't get represented. But these two important forests in the world I really am looking forward to what's going to happen in the Women's Climate Action Agenda around these important forests and what our recommendations and action plans are going to be around our world's forests. So I wanted to really thank these two women from coming from so far away to be the voice of the forests and the women there. Thank you.
Okay, I have the pleasure of announcing, you'll hear more about this, but the part of the day you're all very excited about, which is lunch. But beyond that, for those I haven't met yet, I'm Claire Greensfelder. I'm helping to co-coordinate the working groups for the Women's Climate Action Agenda. And Marta, are you in the room? Marta must have stepped out for a second, but just a reminder that still a number of you have not yet signed up for a working group, and we're asking that at lunch, if you haven't done that, there is a sign-up table right by the registration. And if you still haven't made up your mind, you can, I'm one of those people also that, well, maybe at 3:45 you'll make up your mind since it starts then, but it helps us a lot to know how to put it together. So if you can, please stop by and sign up for a working group. Second, the co-chairs are going to meet for lunch together. And